Welcome to Reddit Stories, where a wild Karen demands OP babysits for her and ends up regretting it. My best friend expects me to put my life on hold to babysit her newborn. I, 20 female, have been best friends with Maya, who's 20, since we were 12. We used to joke that we were sisters born to the wrong moms. We grew up side by side, same schools, same hobbies, same dreams of traveling and seeing the world together. But this year, everything changed. A few months ago, Maya had a baby. The father isn't around. Her parents help a little, but they aren't exactly supportive. They still live in that old-fashioned mindset that if you make a mistake, you deal with it on your own. So she's been raising her baby almost completely by herself. When she first told me she was pregnant, I promised to help in any way I could, and I meant it. I knew it would be hard, and I wanted to be there for her. Before the baby came, she asked if I'd babysit sometimes so she could rest or work. I said of course, sometimes. I never imagined what sometimes would turn into. Once the baby arrived, everything became about her needing help. She'd call me early in the morning, begging me to come by just for a bit, and I'd rush over. That bit always became half the day. She'd tell me to feed the baby so she could nap, and then nap turned into a grocery run, which turned into me cooking dinner. I'd leave when it was already dark, exhausted, wondering when it became my responsibility too. At first, I told myself it was just temporary, that she just needed a few weeks to adjust. But then it became every day. She'd message while I was in class, asking me to skip and come over because the baby won't stop crying or something. She even showed up once outside my workplace with a stroller because she was too tired to take the bus home. I left my shift early to drive her home, and my manager wasn't happy about it. The guilt she used worked every time. She'd say, "You don't understand how hard it is." And she was right, I don't. But that doesn't mean I have to give up everything to make her life easier. The breaking point came when I told her I'd been accepted into a study abroad program next semester. It's been my dream since high school. I'd worked part-time for 2 years just to afford it. I told her the news with a huge smile, waiting for her to share my excitement. But she didn't. She went quiet at first, and then started crying. She said I was abandoning her and the baby. She said I was selfish for leaving when she needed me the most. Then came the line that I can't forget. "I gave up everything while you get to live your dream." I tried to calm her down, told her I'd still visit before I left and help when I could, but that I couldn't stay. She said I was choosing travel over family. And when I said gently that her baby wasn't my responsibility, she hung up on me. After that, she stopped answering my texts. A few days later, her mom messaged me, a whole paragraph saying that I used Maya for years and I dumped her when real life hit. I didn't even know what to say. I'd spent the past few months dropping everything for her. I missed classes, lost sleep, and turned down plans because I felt too guilty to say no. And now I was the bad guy? It broke my heart because I do love her like a sister. But lately I've realized our friendship stopped feeling like a friendship. It became one-sided. I was the helper, and she was the one who needed saving. The last time I saw her, I stopped by to drop off some formula and diapers I bought with my own money. She barely looked at me. The baby was crying, and she just handed her over without saying a word. I rocked the baby until she stopped crying, then said I had to leave because I had a shift. Maya just said, "Of course you do." That's when I knew this wasn't just exhaustion talking. She resents me for having a life outside of hers. I sat in my car afterward and cried the whole way home. I felt guilty, angry, and sad all at once. I've tried to remember the girl she used to be, the one who used to laugh with me about the dumbest things, the one who used to push me to chase my goals. That version of her feels gone now, buried under exhaustion and resentment. Maybe she'll understand one day, maybe she won't, but I can't be her substitute partner or her full-time babysitter. I told her I'd always care about her, but I won't put my life on hold. If that makes me the bad guy, then I guess I'll live with it. But at least I'll be living and not stuck in someone else's story. Not the jerk. You owe her nothing. She made her choices, and now she has to handle them. Her mom wants someone to blame, so she picked you because you're the only one still standing near the blast radius. Let her mom babysit if it's such a big deal. You didn't impregnate her. You didn't abandon her. And you're not responsible for fixing her life. It's not heartless to have boundaries. You can care about someone deeply and still not be their free daycare. Support is supposed to be a bridge, not a leash. If she can't handle the fact that you have your own life, that's on her, not you. So OP's friend had a baby, and suddenly she's the unpaid nanny? Pretty much. Full-time nanny, zero pay, and endless guilt trips. Some people really think help me out means raise my kid. Yeah, that friendship's due for a nap time. Do I keep quiet or call out our rude guest on his nonsense? My wife loves entertaining. She's great at it too, the kind of person who makes hosting look effortless. I, on the other hand, am wired differently. I'm introverted. I get anxious about having people in my space, and I never truly relax until everyone's gone. Even without this particular guest, I'd already be dreading the evening. But tonight's dinner includes a man I'd honestly pay money not to have in my home. He's one of the other swim team dads. Our 2 kids are both on the same team, and he's a professor at the local university. On paper, that sounds fine. In practice, he's unbearable. He's the kind of guy who can't let any conversation exist unless he's the one dominating it. He calls himself an academic thinker. I call him the loudest man in any room. It doesn't matter what you're talking about. Sports, food, fishing, the weather. He'll find a way to twist it into a lecture about economics, politics, or how everything ties back to capitalism and social conditioning. Unbearable. I've tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he's just awkward. Nope. He's condescending, smug, and allergic to self-awareness. A few weeks ago, I was chatting with another dad during swim practice about bow hunting. We were standing off to the side, away from the kids, talking quietly. Out of nowhere, this professor swoops in like he's been waiting for the spotlight. He listens for maybe half a second, then launches into a monologue about how hunting promotes a culture of violence and exploitation. I told him calmly that one of the reasons I wanted to hunt was to move away from factory farming, but he literally held up a finger as if to shush me. Then he said, "I'm sorry, but I'm an expert in this field." He's a sociology professor, not a biologist, not an environmental scientist, a sociologist. I just stood there, stunned. The other dad looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. Thankfully, the swim coach called us over to go over the practice schedule, or I think I would have said something I'd regret. Ever since, I've done my best to avoid him. But the universe has a twisted sense of humor, because tonight, he and his wife are coming over to our house for dinner. My wife's hosting the whole team's parents to try to build some community. I get it. She wants things to go well. But the thought of spending hours with this man, trapped at my own table, is giving me heartburn before the food's even cooked. At practice today, I overheard him telling a few parents that professional sports exist to distract people from real social issues. This is the same guy who went to a baseball game the week before. I'm guessing to observe human behavior or something like that. He said it was like he was an anthropologist descending into the Amazon. What really gets me is that a few parents actually seem impressed by him. They nod along, hanging on to every pretentious word. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there wondering how anyone can listen to him for more than 5 minutes without checking their watch. Actually, now I'm wondering if they're genuinely interested or just too polite to run for the door. So here's my problem. My wife has asked me to keep things civil and not start an argument. I promised I'd try, but I know this guy. He'll interrupt people, talk over everyone, and turn the night into his personal lecture hall. If he starts insulting people again, or worse, tries to embarrass someone, do I just let it happen? And if it's me, do I defend myself and risk ruining my wife's dinner? Or do I stay quiet, let him dig his own grave, and hope everyone sees through his nonsense on their own? I want to respect my wife, but man, this guy makes it really hard. It's not like anyone's going to invite him back. Focus on talking to people you actually like and on helping your wife with the food. I just have to get something out of the oven is a perfect reason to escape a boring conversation. A good host keeps things light. Let your wife make friends, and you can make a clean getaway when he starts droning on. There's no point in arguing with him. Let him talk. Everyone will see what he is. If he pulls the "I'm an expert" move again, just smile and say, "We can agree to disagree." If he tries to speak over you, say calmly, "That was rude," and move on. Standing up for yourself doesn't mean turning the event into a debate club. Update: the party is winding down, and wow, what a night. So first, thank you to everyone who commented earlier. I didn't realize the post would get that much attention, but reading through your advice really helped me prepare for what was coming. The dinner started out surprisingly calm. My wife was radiant, greeting everyone, setting up the food, keeping the energy warm and light. For the first hour, things were actually fun. The kids ran around the yard while the adults chatted. Even the professor seemed tolerable. But as the night went on and the wine kept flowing, the old personality started showing. He went from friendly to full-blown philosopher in about 2 glasses. He cornered one dad in the kitchen and started lecturing about how competitive sports feed toxic masculinity. Then he jumped into a conversation about parenting and said people who let their kids watch TV lack intellectual curiosity or whatever. I saw my wife's polite smile twitch a little. The night hit its low point when he started explaining racial issues to one of the moms, who was biracial. He actually tried to tell her that she just didn't get it. The entire table went silent. To her credit, this mom handled it with absolute grace. She let him talk himself deeper and deeper into the hole, just sipping her wine and giving these perfect little nods. Finally, when he paused for a breath, she said quietly, "You're right. I probably don't understand it as well as my dad does. He was actually hit with a fire hose as a teenager." It was one of the calmest, coldest mic drops I've ever witnessed. He didn't even realize how bad it looked. He tried to laugh it off and kept talking, but at that point, his own wife stepped in. She put a hand on his shoulder and said, "It's time to go." And just like that, they were out the door, the first guests to leave. Everyone else stayed, half stunned and half relieved. The mood slowly lifted after that. The mom who shut him down was laughing again within minutes, and the rest of us finally got to enjoy dessert without being lectured. My wife whispered, "Thank you," later for not losing my temper. She said she had never seen someone crash and burn so completely without anyone saying a word. The next day, a few parents texted her saying they had a great time and that they were never inviting that professor anywhere again. Mission accomplished. It's now almost midnight, the house is finally quiet, and I'm sitting here decompressing with a round of Fortnite. Honestly, I feel lighter than I have in weeks. People like him thrive on attention. Silence is their kryptonite. That mom deserves a medal. That's how you handle ignorance. Calm, factual, and with a sharp enough smile to cut glass. You did exactly the right thing by keeping your cool. You let him destroy himself. The best kind of victory is the one where you don't even have to swing. Glad your wife got her peaceful dinner in the end. Imagine showing up to dinner just to lecture everyone about life. There's always that one guy who mistakes small talk for a debate stage. Yeah, and he never runs out of breath or self-confidence. Probably went home thinking he changed the world, one bored guest at a time. Am I the jerk for not wanting to move my wedding dates because my sister is pregnant? I've always dreamed of having a small, relaxed wedding. Something simple and meaningful, not the kind of thing that turns into a 3-day family circus. My fiancé and I wanted to treat it like a family vacation with a wedding sprinkled in. My parents have this beautiful lakefront property that seemed perfect for it. It's quiet, surrounded by trees, and everyone could stay there for the week. Originally, I wanted our wedding date to be June 26th. That's the day my fiancé and I met, so it felt right. But when I told my family, my sister immediately shut it down because she had already planned a vacation during that week. I was sad, but it wasn't the end of the world, and I didn't want drama, so I agreed to move it earlier, June 4th to June 9th. It wasn't ideal, but I told myself it was no big deal. For 7 months, everything was going smoothly. I sent out the dates to both families, started paying deposits, and the excitement was building. Then one night, my dad FaceTimed me with my mom and sister. My sister was smiling and holding up an ultrasound photo. I was so happy for her. My baby sister was pregnant, and I was about to become an aunt. But the moment shifted when I asked her due date. She said May 1st, then added, "We'll have to talk about your wedding." I assumed she meant she wouldn't be able to attend, so I said that was fine. I could FaceTime her in. But her expression changed completely, and my mom jumped in saying we could just move the wedding to September instead. That's when it hit me. They weren't asking if I could move it, they were expecting me to. After the call, I broke down crying. I had already changed my wedding date once to accommodate my sister's plans, and now they wanted me to do it again because she was pregnant. I love her deeply, but this felt unfair. My fiance's family had booked time off work. Deposits were paid. Everything was lined up for those June dates. The guilt hit hard. My family has a way of making me feel like the difficult one when I push back. I know traveling with a newborn won't be easy, but I didn't think it was unreasonable to go ahead with the dates we had already planned. Still, I know how this will go. They'll tell me that I'm being selfish, that I'm choosing a party over family, that I'm not being understanding. My sister has always been the golden child. She's a doctor. She lives close to my parents, and she's the one they rely on for everything. I live across the country and visit maybe once a year, so I've learned not to make waves. But this time, it's my wedding, and I can't keep giving in every time she wants something. Am I really the bad guy for wanting to keep my wedding date? I'd move it back to the 26th, honestly. That's the date that matters to you and your fiancé. Your sister will keep finding reasons why it doesn't work. First a vacation, then the baby, then something else. It's not about scheduling. It's about everything having to revolve around her. Classic golden child treatment. She gets sympathy, you get guilt-tripped. Your parents didn't even stop to ask what this means for you. The fact they immediately jumped in to defend her before even considering your side says everything. I think you need to go low contact with your family. Not the jerk. You already moved your date once. That's more than fair. Weddings are about the couple, not the audience. If she can't come, that's unfortunate, but it's not your responsibility to pause your life for her. Update. A lot has happened in the last week. I took some time before calling my family again because I wanted to speak calmly, not emotionally. My brother was the first person I reached out to. He immediately said I wasn't wrong and that I shouldn't move the date again. He even offered to be there when I talked to our mom so I wouldn't get cornered. That talk didn't go as planned. My mom called me first and wanted to talk things through. I told her I wasn't changing the date. She sounded upset at first, but surprisingly calm. Then she dropped this. You'll have to talk to your sister because she's not going to be happy about being forced out 1 month postpartum. I explained that I wasn't forcing anyone to do anything. I told her my sister didn't have to attend and that we could include her by video call. My mom snapped. No, she's coming to your wedding, even if she's a new mom. That's when I realized this wasn't even about what was practical or respectful. It was about my mom's habit of turning everything into her decision, something she clearly passed on to my sister. I argued that forcing my sister to travel so soon after giving birth was unhealthy and unfair, and my mom accused me of creating drama for no reason. She also said she was disappointed I'd gone to my brother for advice instead of her. The call ended badly. The next day, I tried to call my sister. She declined, so I texted her instead, explaining everything. That we had been planning this date for months, that my fiancé's family was already committed, and that I wasn't trying to exclude her. Her response made my jaw drop. She said, "You and I both know your wedding date isn't set in stone. You could move it if you wanted. I hope the hassle is worth not having your niece or nephew there." I told her calmly that I wasn't choosing to exclude her, but I had to draw the line somewhere. She doubled down, saying there were no excuses and that I was choosing not to include her. She then said, "I'd move my date in a heartbeat. That's the difference between us." So I tested her. I asked if the 26th, the original date she had made me change because of her vacation, would work now. She said no, because she was still going on that vacation. Not even 2 months after giving birth and only 20 days after my wedding. I'm not the most knowledgeable about babies, but I don't feel like there's a huge difference between traveling with a 1-month-old and traveling with a 1.5-month-old. That's when it all clicked. This wasn't about timing. She just wanted to control it. So I'm done. I told my fiancé we're sticking with our date. Whoever shows up, and whoever doesn't, that's on them. This has nothing to do with being postpartum. She just can't stand the idea of not being the center of attention. She's upset that the baby won't debut on her terms. Good for you for setting a boundary. People like your sister count on you caving. Once they realize you won't, they have no power. Update 2. So everything had finally settled down. My fiancé and I were trying to focus on being excited again. My sister was still giving me the silent treatment, but I figured she just needed space. Then 2 nights ago, we got a FaceTime from my fiancé's sister-in-law. She was holding up 2 positive pregnancy tests. She's due the first week of June, the same week as our wedding. After we congratulated her and hung up, My fiancé and I just stared at each other and started laughing. Of course this would happen. Both sides of the family, both babies due right before our wedding. What were the odds? So we sat there for a while and finally he said, "You know what? Forget it. Let's just elope." And that's exactly what we're doing. We canceled everything, called the vendors, and told our families the wedding was off. We're getting married at the courthouse on June 26th, the date I wanted from the very beginning. Then we'll head to the lake house as a mini honeymoon. My family's relieved because it ends the drama. His family's a little disappointed because they wanted to celebrate with us, but I've honestly never felt more at peace. Sometimes the universe tells you when to stop trying to please everyone. At the end of the day, we're getting married and getting some adorable little nieces and nephews. This will be the last update because no more wedding means no more drama. You dodged so much stress. The universe literally cleared the path for you to have the wedding you wanted all along. Sometimes things fall apart just so they can fall into place. That's honestly hilarious. You tried so hard to plan around everyone, and the universe just said, nope. I love that you're eloping on your original date too. The poetic justice of it all. I can already hear your sister saying, "How dare you have your anniversary so close to my baby's birthday?" Some people really can't handle life moving on without them. You made the right call. Congrats. Update 1 year later. I really didn't think I'd be back, but here we are. The sequel no one asked for. For anyone who remembers, my husband and I eloped last year and had the most perfect, peaceful wedding day. Just pizza, margaritas, and zero family drama. Now we have an adorable niece and nephew, and everything's been calm. Well, until recently. Apparently, my sister is back to her old ways. Her brother-in-law, Zach, just got engaged. He and his fiancée are planning a destination wedding in France, followed by a small local celebration back home. My sister texted me saying, "Since you've been through wedding drama, I need your advice." Then she told me she doesn't want her husband, Scott, to go to France for his brother's wedding because it overlaps with their annual vacation. Yes, the same vacation that caused all my drama. She said she'd be sad to miss their baby's first trip, and she's trying to convince her husband to stay home too. Zach told her it would devastate him if his brother didn't come. I told her exactly that weddings happen once and vacations happen every year. Her response? Weddings suck. So I guess that's her official stance now. At this point, I just laughed. Some people will never stop making everything about themselves, and I've learned the only way to survive is to stop trying to fix it. Weddings don't suck, but self-centered people sure do. The best part is you're not even mad anymore, just amused. That's real peace. I've read your other posts. Your sister is exhausting. She's selfish and manipulative. She doesn't care about anyone but herself, and the second she's not the center of attention, she throws a fit. She guilt trips people, then plays victim when she doesn't get her way. You've spent years tiptoeing around her feelings. It's time she learns other people's lives don't pause for her convenience. If her husband skips his brother's wedding because of her, he's going to regret it forever. I'd be done catering to her. She's a grown woman acting like the world should orbit around her. If she keeps this up, she's going to end up alone at her precious vacations, wondering why nobody wants to deal with her anymore. I'm 66, male, and my wife, who's 61, is taking care of her aunt, who's 86, and it's killing our marriage. Hi, everyone. My daughter's helping me type this because I'm not much of a computer guy, and she said I could use some outside opinions. I'm at a loss. I love my wife deeply, but these past 2 years have been harder than the first 40 we spent together combined. My wife's aunt, who's 86, became a widow 2 years ago. When her husband passed, she was terrified of living alone. She's always been attached to family, and my wife felt bad for her. We had an extra room and figured it would just be temporary, so we let her move in. At first, it was fine. She was still healthy, alert, and independent. She helped around the house and cooked sometimes, but gradually, she started depending on my wife more and more. It began with small things, like wanting my wife to go to the store with her or sit beside her while she watched TV. Then she didn't want my wife to go anywhere without her. If my wife went to work, the aunt would call her multiple times in one afternoon. If she went out shopping, the aunt would complain that she took too long. If we went to a family event, the aunt would tag along even when she clearly didn't want to be there, just because she refused to be apart from my wife. I told my wife I thought it was becoming unhealthy. I suggested she encourage her aunt to reconnect with friends, or at least spend time talking to people her age. She brushed me off, saying I was overreacting. Then, 6 months ago, everything changed. The aunt caught bronchitis, then another viral infection, and she started complaining of back pain. She became dependent on us for everything: walking, eating, even using the bathroom. Suddenly, my wife was her full-time caretaker. She couldn't leave the house without the aunt crying or throwing a fit. When I say she wanted constant attention, I mean constant. She wanted my wife to feed her, talk to her all day, sleep next to her, and comfort her whenever she started crying. My wife barely slept, barely ate, and completely stopped spending time with me. At first, I told myself it was temporary. My wife said once her aunt recovered, things would go back to normal. But 2 months went by and nothing changed. The aunt acted like a child and refused to do anything for herself. We went to the doctor, who said she was physically fine. That didn't sit right with us, so we went to 2 more specialists. Same answer. The last doctor even said that if she stayed in decent health, she could live another 10 to 15 years. That's when the weight of it all hit me. 10 to 15 years of this? My wife running herself into the ground while I lose her one piece at a time? We also spoke with a psychologist. He said the aunt might be suffering from some form of anxiety or dependency, but that my wife and I needed to start putting boundaries first if we wanted to protect our marriage. He told us we had to focus on each other again, not just her. So I came up with an idea. I'm retired now, and my wife has always dreamed of taking a cruise around Alaska. I wanted to surprise her with something that would remind us who we are outside of being caretakers. I quietly planned the whole thing, tickets, cabin, everything, and asked our daughter, who's 35, to come stay with the aunt for the week. When I finally told my wife, she was thrilled. She hugged me and said she couldn't wait. For a moment, I saw her smile the way she used to before all of this. Then she told her aunt. That night, our home turned into chaos. Her aunt wailed and screamed, saying we were abandoning her. She called her friends and told them we were cruel for leaving her alone. She threw herself on the floor. She even said she might not make it if my wife left. I told my wife we couldn't keep living like this and that maybe it was time to move her aunt into an assisted living facility, somewhere safe where professionals could help her. My wife refused. She said she wasn't going to abandon her aunt, that it was just hard to be old. Then she canceled our trip. It broke my heart. I had spent months planning it, hoping it would remind us how to enjoy life together again. She said she was sure I'd understand, but I didn't. I went on the trip with our daughter instead. We had a wonderful time, but it didn't feel right. The entire cruise, I kept thinking of my wife sitting at home, trapped by her aunt's guilt. Now we're trying to sell the house. It's too big for us, and I thought downsizing would be the next chapter in our retirement. But even that process has been hijacked by the aunt. She has opinions about everything: the number of stairs, the size of the windows, what direction the bedroom faces, and my wife listens to her. Every time I try to bring up how this has changed our marriage, my wife says I'm being selfish. But I'm not trying to take her away from her aunt. I just want my wife back. I want my partner. I want to spend our remaining years enjoying each other's company, not living like unwanted guests in our own home. We started couples counseling, but it hasn't helped much. My wife insists her aunt needs her and that no one else would care for her properly. I've been married to this woman for 45 years. She's the love of my life. I don't want to lose her. I don't want to give her ultimatums. But I also can't keep living this way. I retired to spend time with her, to laugh, to travel, to visit our grandkids. Instead, I spend my days waiting for the woman I married to come back from the bedroom where she's stuck feeding an old woman who refuses to help herself. I just want my wife back. Is your wife really willing to ruin your retirement and marriage for her aunt? You've done your share of caring. It's time for boundaries. Maybe look into professional care at home instead of a nursing home. That way your wife can still visit without losing herself completely. Is your wife from another culture? Sometimes that kind of caretaking is deeply ingrained. If her family relies heavily on one another, it can feel impossible to let outsiders help. But you have to protect your marriage too. Maybe reach out to local agencies or adult day programs for respite care. OP, you're right. My wife grew up in a family where women always took care of the elders. Her mother cared for her mother until she passed. The aunt has lived in the US for 50 years but never learned English. She only speaks her native language, which makes everything more complicated. Update. Something strange but good finally happened. We were looking at a house we both loved. It had everything we had talked about for years: a garden for my wife, a small workshop for me, and enough space for grandkids to visit. My wife was glowing when we left the showing, for a moment, and felt like we were us again. Later that night, she showed the pictures to her aunt. The aunt took one look and said, "You can't buy that house. It has stairs. I can't go up and down stairs." And just like that, something in my wife shifted. She looked at her aunt and said, "It's the house my husband and I want. You can manage a few stairs." Her aunt cried for hours, but my wife didn't cave. For the first time in years, she didn't apologize or back down. We called our new therapist the next morning. She told us to treat the aunt's emotional outbursts like a child's tantrum. Acknowledge it, check on her occasionally, but don't give in. So that's what we did. We checked on her every 15 minutes that first night just to be safe. By morning, she had stopped crying. Since then, things have slowly improved. My wife still cares for her aunt, but she doesn't let her control every part of our lives anymore. If the aunt complains about something unreasonable, my wife gently dismisses it and moves on. Our new therapist has been a blessing. She helped my wife understand why she felt such a deep, almost parental need to care for her aunt, even at the cost of her own happiness. It's not perfect yet, but for the first time in a long while, it feels like we have our lives back. Thank you to everyone who offered advice and encouragement. Changing therapists was the best thing we could have done. This is a wonderful outcome. Your wife learning to set limits doesn't mean she stopped caring. It means she finally started caring for herself too. I looked at the clock right now and it says 3:33 for some reason. It's amazing what the right therapist can do. The aunt's behavior sounds like emotional manipulation mixed with dependency. You both handled it better than most would. As someone watching my own parents navigate caregiving, I'm so glad you stuck it out. It's easy to lose yourself in obligation. You and your wife earned your peace. You know, Karen, sometimes love doesn't look like candlelight and roses. Sometimes it's just standing your ground for the person you built a life with. Yeah, and setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's what keeps the love from burning out. Took her a while, but she remembered they're a couple, not caretakers. And that's the real happy ending. Two people finally choosing each other again. My oldest daughter is demanding to use my younger daughter's wedding fund to buy a house. Me, 59 male, and my wife, who's 53, have two daughters who we'll call Rose and Lily. They're 27 and 24. They both earn roughly the same amount of money, which is quite a lot for their ages. Rose has a 2-year-old and a husband who earns a fair bit less than her, and Lily has a boyfriend who earns a bit more than her. They both inherited a big chunk of money from my mother, enough for a 10 to 15% deposit on a house they could realistically buy. Rose has always lived beyond her means, and certainly her husband's. They've alluded to using some of their house savings when their daughter, Poppy, was born, despite my wife looking after Poppy full-time while my daughter worked. Her husband has recently confessed he hasn't saved a penny in almost 10 years they've been together. On the other hand, Lily and her boyfriend have almost doubled the original amount saved and never seem to have any issues with money, whilst we constantly seem to be helping out Rose. Both girls are looking at buying houses. Lily and her boyfriend have been approved for a lovely house with a 25% deposit. Rose also had an offer accepted, but as it turned out, due to commuting costs and childcare from moving away, adding up to almost the cost of another mortgage, they will only be able to get a mortgage for roughly half of what they thought. And they only have 5%. Rose told Lily this and asked how on earth she had been accepted on a bigger house as a younger couple. Lily was honest and told her how much she made as a couple and how much they were putting down, and Rose broke down a little. She asked how much we had given Lily, and we told her nothing extra. That night, my wife and I were talking, and she said she didn't realize how badly Rose was financially and how well Lily is doing. We had paid for Rose's wedding and planned to do so for Lily too, but so far she's insisted she doesn't want or need it. I want to keep that money so we can still offer it to her when the time comes, even if Lily won't accept it, but my wife wants to give the money to Rose, as she says having a baby makes it a lot harder for Rose, and she doesn't want the money to go to waste when our only grandchild doesn't have a home. Not the jerk. Taking the money earmarked for Lily's wedding and giving it to Rose is literally throwing the good money after the bad. The difference between the two sisters is not how much they earn, but how well they manage what they have. Lily and her partner are financially savvy and responsible, and Rose and her husband are not. No matter how much money you give Rose, it will go to waste. Not the jerk. But even if Lily turns down the money, you aren't doing Rose any favors. This isn't the case of someone losing their job and struggling, or someone getting in debt after an injury or an illness. This is someone who lived outside of their means and never saved a dime in a decade. I wouldn't be surprised if you have to keep bailing her out if she doesn't learn how to become a fiscally responsible adult. Your wife is the jerk. She's actively enabling your oldest in her bad decisions. The child does not suffer from homelessness. She's almost 30. It's time to put some boundaries down. Stop helping her live over her means. Teach her the reality of life. Your eldest is clearly the golden child of your life. You go, sir. Keep things equal. If your youngest doesn't want the money, put it in a trust fund for her future, kids or not. If the eldest can't budget, it's not the youngest's duty to sacrifice nonstop for her. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Hey Reddit boy, when dad pays for the wedding, do you think he should get to invite some of his friends? Don't try me, Karen. Am I the jerk for correcting the woman my friend is dating about her status in his life? My longtime friend Joey, 33 male, and I, 31 female, work for a horse breeding and training facility. The job comes with a nice house that's on the property. We get to live in it for free, and we have for 6 years. When I say nice, I mean 6 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, dual master with a pool and a hot tub. Kind of dated, but it would probably be considered a mansion by some. There are some catches. Basically, it doubles as a bed and breakfast for out-of-town clients. Especially during show season, we're expected to do a lot of cooking and entertaining there. But we both love it, which is why we stay here. I don't really date much. I'm more of an independent person by nature and a homebody. Joey is kind of the opposite. He's got a lot of disposable income, and he kind of lives the player lifestyle when he has time to. But our jobs are taxing, so we spend a lot of the time just hanging out together at the house, smoking and playing video games. He's my buddy. We spend most days together when he isn't on the road. He's really upfront about not wanting a relationship with the women he sees. I do know this. Dude is on like every dating site. The issue is, he will occasionally have women he sees regularly, and they sometimes will get the impression things are progressing. And I usually start becoming someone they don't like being around so much and start to ask why I live there. He's currently seen 4 different women periodically, 2 of them quite regularly. They're aware that he does not consider it a relationship, but he also doesn't tell them if, when, or how many others there are, and kind of just avoids that topic with them. Recently, one came over, Kelly, who's 36, and he was finishing up with a client in the barn. I invited her in, got her a drink, and invited her to watch TV with me while she waited for him. When we were talking, she started asking about my relationship and if I planned to move out of Joey's house. I'm assuming she worded it that way because Joey is the head trainer at the farm, so he's kind of the star of the show. I'm the manager, so much less glamorous position, but I do make more than him. I told her it was both of our house, not just his, and I didn't have any plans to move out. She then said, "It's just weird that at his age, he would want a female roommate when he's in a relationship." I said, "He's in a relationship?" Her response was that it wasn't official, but they pretty much were. I told her that was news to me. That seemed to offend her, and she said, "Well, maybe you didn't know because you aren't the most important woman in his life. He doesn't have to get your permission." I said, "You're right, he doesn't. I actually don't care. I'm just surprised because if I had to rank the chicks he's currently seeing, you're maybe number 2. This obviously didn't go over well, and she ended up leaving. Ouch. She called Joey, and things there ended. He told me that he was not aware they were basically in a relationship, and said knowing that, he's glad it ended. Our other friend/coworker says it was a jerk thing to say to her. I didn't like her implying that I wasn't welcome in my own home, so I corrected some of her inaccurate beliefs about the situation, and it was the truth. Well, almost. Joey said she was more like number 3. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk, but I have no idea how he manages to have that much energy to entertain that many people. Not the jerk, and I was totally cracking up at the fact that she thought she could act like the mistress of the house and try to push you out. Great job schooling her. The moment when she realized she wasn't even a side character, but she was acting like the main character. I mean, yeah, you could have handled that better. I 100% believe your friend isn't being as honest with these women as you're trying to get us to think he is. He needs to be honest with these people, and not in a way that embarrasses them and makes them feel bad the way that you did. Everyone sucks here, including you and your friend, who seems like a jerk. Being completely passive-aggressive to a woman who likely is being misled by her friend in the first place. Don't get me wrong, the woman was showcasing heavy insecurities and projecting it upon OP, but OP didn't need to push it as hard as she did. There's ways of handling unpleasant people that don't require acting how she did. I would have just said, I don't appreciate you questioning why I'm living where I am just because you're spending time with my roommate. If you have questions about that, you should probably talk to him, because I'm not here for you to overstep your boundaries with, and I won't sit here having you speak to me like that. Okay, you are all jerks. Straggling along 5 women at the same time as if it's funny, fair, or a joke? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP, her roommate, or his girlfriend? Well, she's not actually his girlfriend, she's just one of his, circle, I guess? Please let us know. If you just want to hook up with people and aren't actually interested in a relationship, always make that clear to them. Am I the jerk for yelling at my family for getting me a birthday cake I don't want for the 15th year in a row? Unfortunately, I, 18 female, was born a day after my cousin, who's 20 female. Ever since I was little, my needs for my birthday were always outshined by hers. We always did family events to celebrate our birthdays since we were the eldest kids in the family, so we just kind of shared our birthday party. We had the same cake. My family either never wrote my name on it or would messily scribble it on at the last minute. Party decorations and games catered to her taste, and mostly all gifts would be for her. I just usually ended up getting a $10 gift card for Walmart or something, while she always got dolls, games for her Nintendo DS, and even a puppy one time. I always felt like I didn't matter for my birthday. Even my quinceañera fell flat, since my family went all out, making my cousin feel like the most special girl in the world. But my cousin was always nice to me, and she would give me some of her gifts just to put a smile on my face. This year was my 18th birthday, and all my relatives were gathered in one place to celebrate me and my cousin's birthdays. My mother had promised me my own separate cake and that it would be an Oreo ice cream cake, my favorite. So I was excited. When my abuela gathered the family together to blow out the candles and sing happy birthday, my cousin and I got in our respective spots. They started singing while my mother brought a cake to the table and placed it in front of my cousin. It was a strawberry cheesecake. After we got done singing, my cousin blew out her candles and everybody clapped. My aunt started to cut the cake, and I would audibly ask about my cake. My entire family looks confused, and they all say, "This cake is for the both of you." My cousin spoke up, saying, "But it only has my name on it." I looked at my mom, who had a "what?" expression on her face. I asked about the cake, and she told me, "You don't need the extra sugar." At that point, I just lost it, screaming at my family members and calling them all jerks. I cried about how this is the 15th year in a row that they've left me out and forgot about me, and how they ruined my birthday by always prioritizing my cousin. My cousin and little brother also jumped in and defended me, saying that I'm always never thought of. My abuela had the audacity to deliberately interrupt me, telling me to sit down and stop yelling. Through anger, I yelled that I never wanted to see any of them again, and I stormed off. My cousin and brother followed me, all comforting me while I cried my eyes out. This happened a few days ago, and I've been receiving angry messages from my family members calling me an ungrateful jerk. I'm at my cousin's apartment right now writing this, all while texting my little brother to vent. Reddit, am I the jerk for yelling at my family for not giving me the cake that I've wanted for nearly my entire lifetime? Edit. After reading the replies, my cousin and I have made the decision to block all of the toxic family members and go no contact. I'll be living at my cousin's apartment now, and we're working on finding me a job. Final edit. I won't be responding to any more comments, but just know that I'm in a safe place now, and we're working on where to go from here. Not just a job, but finding a way to afford college for me and such. Your cousin and brother sound like the only reasonable people. Maybe you could go out, just the 3 of you, for cake. OP. Funny enough, that's exactly what happened after I walked off. My cousin took my brother and I back to her apartment, and she went to our local Walmart to get me an Oreo ice cream cake, as well as 18 candles. She sang Feliz Cumpleaños to me and gave me $100. Where are your parents in all of this? Why have they let this happen over the years? OP. My parents funded the parties, as well as my aunt, uncle, and abuela. I remember asking them why I never got my own cake when I was 11, and they simply told me, "We just don't have enough money." But that's a lie, since our house that I've grown up in is pretty big. They have 2 BMWs in the driveway, and my little brother is going to private school soon. Did your mom forget? Is she just too broke? OP. It seemed like she just didn't want to get it. She even texted me, "Can't believe you're mad that I didn't get you a darn cake. You didn't need it anyways." Why is everyone against you? What is the root of this favoritism? Is there any context? OP. I hate to make this a self-pity party, but I'll tell you what's happened to me growing up. I was kind of an unwanted kid by my dad since he always wanted a son, and I wasn't feminine enough for my mother. I even remember when I turned 6 that my parents just kind of put me to the side after my little brother was born. I've never really felt like I earned the spotlight enough. They would always congratulate my brother when he made an accomplishment, but mine just kind of fell flat. My parents are the type that believe that art isn't a real job, so they just kind of shook me away whenever I showed them a drawing I made. And my mother would always make offhand comments about how much she wishes that I was like my cousin, who's more feminine, traditionally ladylike, and was an academic scholar back in school. I was basically a C- average student, tomboyish, and kind of average looking in appearance. I get that I'm not the perfect kid, but I kind of wish my parents would at least treat me like their kid, you know? Growing up, my parents always compared me to my cousin. Emily has better grades, her pictures look prettier, her blonde locks are gorgeous. You're going into art? Well, she's going into medical school. I've never resented my cousin for being better, but I hated my parents constantly shoving it in my face. I'm 25 female. My boyfriend, who's 25, of 12 years, has told me he's had a baby. How do I get over this? I've been with my boyfriend since we were both in middle school. I always imagined we would be together forever. He's the only guy I've been with. He's the only boyfriend I've ever had. I've given up so much for him. I didn't pursue my chosen career and go to uni as it would have meant moving away from him. I passed up the opportunity to move abroad with my family, and I now have no family living in this country anymore. I passed up going traveling and nights out with friends on what should have been the best years of my life. We own a house together, we split the mortgage, but I put the full $10,000 deposit down as I am in a financially better position than him. I always envisioned growing old with him, spending my life with him, having kids with him. We briefly broke up in December, early January for a few weeks after an argument. He went out and hooked up with somebody else, but didn't tell me. We just got back together and nothing was said. Yesterday, he speaks to me, very upset, and tells me that in September, the woman that he had hooked up with had a baby. I asked why he didn't tell me sooner, and he said because he doubted the kid was his and he wanted to block it all out, so he was ignoring her. But the girl contacted his mother, and his mother had a grandparent DNA test done and proved she's the grandmother. Ever since, his mom has been arguing with him about being involved as she sees the baby every weekend and is telling him that he needs to tell me. He only told me because his mom said if he didn't, then she would. I don't know how to handle this. Boyfriend is crying, saying he was trapped, that she had told him there was no way she could get pregnant. He's saying he's not ready and he doesn't want to lose me and is making threats on himself if I leave him. I don't know what to do. Do I forget these past 12 years and all I've ever known and move on? Or do I forgive him and try to make this work? Edit. I did message the girl, probably against my better judgment, and asked how we could move forward, and I sent her my best wishes. She just said that she doesn't care if he does or doesn't want to be involved, and that the door's open, but she's glad his family are involved. Then she blocked me. I don't want a stepkid at all. I don't even want a kid of my own for at least another 5 years. I asked him how we would move on from this, and he said, "We'll just pretend the kid doesn't exist and go on about our lives," which disgusted me because I never thought he was the type of coward to abandon his kid like this, and I don't want to be seen as enabling him to do that. I truly believe even if I was out of his life, he wouldn't see the kid, and with us still together in that situation, I'd be seen as the evil one and like I somehow condone his actions. I envisioned him as a strong man of good character, and the fact he doesn't want involvement with the kid and keeps referring to the baby as it, and has even blocked his mom off everything because she is seeing the baby and he doesn't want her to, makes me look at him in a different cowardly light and is giving me the ick. If he had told me when he found out that he had got a girl pregnant but they had needed a DNA test, then got a DNA when the baby was born and he had stuck by the kid, I don't think I'd even be asking this question. I'd be upset and not want to be a step-parent, and I doubt I would be involved myself for a few years, but I'd have supported him and accepted his mistake. The way he's gone about it has ruined everything. If he truly loved me and cared about me, he would have told me from day one. Honey, you're done. You're still so young. You can do better than this. You will do better without this. 1. Break up with him. 2. Sell the house and split the proceeds, minus your down payment. 3. Go to college. You should never ever limit yourself educationally or professionally for a boyfriend. This is a very hard lesson to learn, but I hope you take this to heart. You are young, you still have time to go to college and start a great career. This would be a deal breaker for me personally. Also, the fact that he didn't tell you about it until he had to and is now being emotionally manipulative so you don't leave. At 25, you've got the world ahead of you instead of being someone's stepmom. Exactly. Get out of this. You will learn nothing from being a stepmother to help you in this relationship. The baby's mother is already against you. She's blocked you, and it may only get worse. He's been with you since you were in middle school, but he meets this random, hooks up with her, trusts her word that she can't have kids, finally tells you nearly a year later that he's a father. So in effect, he's telling you he trusts her more than you. I see misery in your future with this dynamic. Leave now while you still can. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. This the type of dude to refuse to pay child support until the court mandates it, then expect his girlfriend to help him pay it. Am I the jerk for refusing to revoke our prenup? I, 32 male, have been married to my wife, 30 female, for over 2 years now, and we've been together for 6 years. I come from a substantially wealthy family. I have a few assets, both inherited and built upon, in my name. My wife, on the other hand, comes from a lower-income household. When we started dating, the economic difference was very evident. While I trust her in general, my family is riddled with stories of gold diggers, in both genders. So I told her if we were to get married, I would be comfortable enough only if she signed a prenup. It's not as in I won't share my privilege with her at all. I would provide the best life for us as long as we are together. She agreed, readily claiming she loved me for me and not for my wealth. Hence, we have a prenup. To clarify, she was working all that time, but with our income disparity, I was covering 70% of expenses. Barely a year into marriage, she got pregnant. We were happy about it. 5 months in, she wanted to quit her job. I supported her decision since I was making enough money to support us. But 3 months into having our newborn, she demands I revoke the prenup. Her argument is she's staying home to raise our kid and putting her career on the line, so there should not be any prenup. I reminded her that I was taking care of us financially while she stayed home with our baby. I look after baby when I'm home as well. She said that's my duty as a father. I said, by that logic, staying home with our baby is her duty as a mother and not something to be compensated for. Not to mention it was her choice to stay home. She got upset with me, saying I don't care about her at all. It's untrue, but her logic is not making sense here. She's not letting this go and keeps saying that I'm ruining her life by holding my purse strings so tight, that she deserves to be on the title of our home at least. When I reminded her it's a premarital property and if she wants her name on a title deed, we can buy a new property together when she gets back to work. Further info. I'm not only taking care of my family financially, I'm also putting money into her retirement fund. I just put my income, other than properties, into our joint account and we both spend from it. Am I the jerk for not revoking the prenup? If this situation was not covered in the prenup, you need better lawyers. Also, a prenup cannot waive away or nullify child support, and in many states, a judge can override it during the divorce if the terms are lopsided. As a compromise, you should do a postnuptial amendment to the prenup to reassure her that your kids and her will still be secure if something happens. She's probably scared that she's going to be at home raising the kids and you will leave her and she'll end up homeless and broke. It's scary. She's at home taking care of your baby, which is a full-time job, saving money for daycare and enriching your kid's life. It isn't scary until you're in the scenario she's in. She had a job and hadn't experienced the situation she's in until she's in it. Take a step back from the prenup side of things and just listen to her and realize it's a lot deeper than her being after your money. She just needs some reassurance. If this was you, I'm sure you'd be feeling similar, especially if more kids are in your future. She's still in postpartum. It's really hard. You are all over the place. Hormones and needing to feel secure is scary, especially if she's never had to rely on someone while not working before. He pays for a chef and a housekeeper. His wife isn't responsible for housework or cooking. He's offered to be a stay-at-home father while she returns to work. He's offered to hire a nanny so she can return to work. He's funding her 401k while she's a stay-at-home mom with inflation adjustments. She has full access to his marital assets, no allowance. If she wasn't stressed before about not having access to his full assets, her new free time may have resulted in a toxic friend undermining her sense of security. People with massive wealth tend to attract these kinds of leeches. I can't blame OP for starting to be concerned. Do you have something in your prenup about alimony? Because if not, you're going to be done for. The courts in most states will favor a stay-at-home mom who lost out on career earnings over a rich dude. You guys should do a postnup at minimum to cover alimony, and she should speak to a family lawyer. Not the jerk. Yeah, you married a gold digger. She was just more patient than most. You're the jerk. This sounds like a really bad and unfair prenup if the deal is she has your baby, gives up her career to take care of the baby, then gets nothing if you decide to run off with a 20-year-old in 10 years. Prenups are supposed to protect both parties, not one. And good prenups definitely don't leave the mother of your baby, who is doing free child labor amounts to tens of thousands of dollars a year that you'd have to pay for if you were a single father, desolate in the event of a divorce you can decide is happening on a whim. Renegotiate the prenup. Make it fair, protect yourself, but also have the minimum decency to recognize she is working right now, albeit as a stay-at-home mom, and she also needs protection for what she's putting into building your life in the event of a divorce. OP. She did not just have my baby, she had our baby. I never said she's not working, but I am also working and contributing equitably to the family. It was also her choice to stay home. I support her in whatever she decides. If she decides to go back tomorrow, I will support her there too. And for the money she is supposedly saving me, and it should be saving us, because the baby is ours, not just mine, I'm fully funding her lifestyle, plus her share of baby-related expenses and household expenses, and putting money into retirement, which is combined more of an amount than her previous income was. If you're working and contributing equitably, why are you the only one who would end up richer than you were if the relationship ends? OP. Because I started off richer before marriage. It's premarital assets and income from them, not marital. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. I'm not so sure the people on Reddit are the best people to be talking to about this. Think I'd consult with some experts on this one. My Karen neighbor is demanding a copy of my apartment key. So I recently moved into my new apartment complex less than 60 days ago. There are only 4 units in my complex, 2 downstairs and 2 upstairs. I reside downstairs in the second apartment. Everyone here has lived here for at least 5 years, whilst the oldest resident has lived here for 8. Everyone knows everyone and has been good friends with each other for as long as each one has been a resident. Everyone in my building has kids besides me, and the majority are single mothers. I'm the only man. Apparently, there's an unspoken agreement I at first had no knowledge of between the other tenants that the hallway door is to never be locked. No one ever locks the hallway door. That was until I arrived. From my knowledge, no one in the building has a hallway key, just the keys to their own apartments. The cost to replace a key is $70, quoted from my landlord. I just finished up my place and have officially moved in for about 3 weeks now. Each time I leave and come back from my complex, I always lock the hallway door. It's always been important to lock all doors around me. My neighbor that works night shift has arrived home for the past couple of weeks to a locked hallway door, which is a surprise given that the door hasn't been locked for years. Apparently, everyone lost their key their first year or so living in the complex. I will hear continuous knocking and banging until someone comes to open the door. The first few nights I was awakened and I got up to unlock the door. After the first week, I've since stopped answering and my neighbor will get up to go unlock it to let our other neighbor in. If my neighbor isn't home or doesn't wake up to come to the door, she will knock and bang on every window and yell until someone comes to open the door. Yesterday, my neighbor asked if I could please leave the door unlocked, given that it's always been that way and they would like me to continue doing so. I expressed that while we live in a dangerous neighborhood, rated one of the top 5 most dangerous in our city, I feel more safe knowing strangers can't enter our building. While she understood my concerns, she assured me no one ever comes here other than residents and their visitors, and my safety is not to worry about. I had to beg to differ. She then asks would I mind lending her my hall key so she can make a copy and let others make their own copy from hers. I politely declined because I wasn't comfortable with that. She offered to pay me to make a copy myself, and which I also declined. For the past week, my neighbors have barely spoken to me. We usually tell each other good morning and chat a little bit, or just say hi or bye, but not even that nowadays. My neighbor, whom volunteers at the food bank in our community, would come back with goodies and share with everyone in the complex. And she no longer knocks on my door to offer me a box as she usually did every Wednesday. I don't care for the food, but the change in this routine leads me to believe I may have upset the rest of the tenants, and I honestly don't want any bad blood. So, my understanding is that this is a communal hallway leading to individual apartment entrances, and the doors to individual apartments can be locked? I don't understand why you wouldn't let them copy your hallway key if that's the case, to be honest. It costs like $3 to $5. You're the jerk. Not always. Some high security keys can be expensive, but it doesn't matter as he's not being asked to pay for it. You're the jerk. You live in a dangerous neighborhood and you're making it so your neighbors are trapped outside at night. You aren't participating in letting them in despite knowing that you locked them out. And you refuse to get them a copy of the communal door key even though they're happy to pay for it. Dude, you suck. Counterpoint. Why has everyone else lost their high security door key? Landlords should charge them all to replace the lock. That's a serious concern. If they pay you for a copy, I don't see what your issue is. It's $70 for the landlord to do it, so it would be cheaper if you did it for everyone. If you want that community and connection, then you have to give a little to get a little back. You're the jerk. Am I the jerk for jumping out of the way when my niece and nephew tried to push me into the pool? Plus updates. My folks decided to host a barbecue because I guess that's what older people do. I declined because I really don't like my two sisters, their husbands, or their kids. Wife and I are child-free. Mom then pressured my wife. Long story short, we went. By the time we arrived, there were about 20 people there. My sisters and their husbands were already solidly buzzed. Drunk, really. My mom was spending 100% of her time trying to keep the nieces and nephews, ages 7 to 11, more or less under control. My dad had strategically retreated to the whirlpool part of the pool with small cooler full of beers. Wife and I made small talk with miscellaneous people, ate food, and we had a frozen margarita. Sisters and brother-in-laws took turns criticizing us for being late, not being in our swimsuits, and messing up the vibe. Whatever. Typical suburban summer get-together. About 45 minutes in, two of the kids ran at one of the neighbor guests who was standing next to the pool and pushed her in. She was at the pool steps, stumbled in, but didn't really fall, so only got half wet. She was clearly very unhappy about it, but she didn't make a scene. Just went over to where the parents were, grabbed their towels, dried herself off, and left. Sisters and brother-in-laws thought it was funny. A bit later, I was standing a few feet away from the pool, chatting away with someone. I saw 3 of the kids running full tilt at me from the corner of my eye. Obviously, I was next. Not that it's terribly difficult to outwit the kids, but I just jumped out of their way at the last second. All 3 of them ran straight into the pool at full speed. Most of the other guests, including my wife and me, started laughing, but their moms, who as I mentioned were pretty buzzed, absolutely freaked out. Apparently, 2 of the kids couldn't even swim. Since I wasn't in swim gear, I stepped back from the pool and let other people fish them out. The little brats were bawling their heads off. At that point, all heck broke loose. The 4 drunk parents were yelling at everyone in general, and me in particular for what I had done, and also because 2 of the kids had been videoing the trick using their parents' iPhones, which were now at the bottom of the pool. One of my brother-in-laws got into the pool to try to retrieve the phones, but his BMI and BAC made that impossible. No one else volunteered to help, unsurprising given that my sisters were still jerks to everyone. I told my sisters it was their job to watch their kids, and that if anything had happened to them, it would have been their responsibility, not mine. There were some pretty strong words on both sides. Wife and I left after the other brother-in-law fell over and face-planted while yelling at us. Now they're saying I should have let the kids knock me into the pool and have their fun, and ruin my phone. So, am I the jerk? Side note, Dad, of course, never got out of the whirlpool. Edit. I realize that they're just kids and they were just having fun. The fact that they thought this was okay is more of a reflection of their parents than them. Just wish we hadn't gone. It's nice to see my folks and their neighbors, but I really don't like my sisters or their husbands. They don't hide their envy of us, and they're just exhausting to be around. I've never been close to my sisters. They're 8 and 10 years older than me. I also don't have much in common with their husbands. They're okay guys, but I just don't give a hoot about the things that are important to them and vice versa. I do know that the 4 of them are somewhat envious of our lifestyle. Both the sisters are stay-at-home moms. Both the husbands make good money. One makes noticeably more than I do. But both my wife and I have professional careers, we don't have kids, and we are way more responsible with money. As a result, we have a lot more investments, etc. And we don't have to drive cars full of kid debris, and we take nice trips once or twice a year. It definitely grates on both sisters and by extension their husbands. So we get some petty behavior from them on an ongoing basis. Neither my wife nor I enjoy their company, which is why I wanted to skip the get-together. Just not worth it to me. But my wife is a positive person and is usually happy to see them. Hopefully next time your wife won't feel guilted into going. That's probably the one positive thing that will come out of this. Wife is much more tolerant and forgiving than I am towards my siblings, but based on what she was saying on the way home, I think she's had it with them as well. Your dad sounds awesome. Yeah, he's very chill. He loves being around groups of people. He used to be in sales. He likes people to enjoy themselves and is definitely enjoying life as a retiree. He and two other guys with him just sat there and watched the show. Mom's cool too, but the situation upset her. Update. After we left, the party ended on a pretty sour note. My drunk brother-in-law who face-planted while yelling at me had to go to urgent care and get his face stitched up. He was too toasted to drive, so Dad took him. Dad was very not happy about this. Later that evening, my sisters started a group text and said some really nasty things. Their husbands threw in a few comments as well. Wife and I blocked the four of them. My mom called me, and she was pretty upset about what they had said. She and Dad were in the chat, and I don't blame her. Because of the texts, my folks insisted my sisters and brother-in-laws come over the next day, Sunday, without their kids to get some things straight and lay down some ground rules, Mom's wording. The result was a contrite, if unenthusiastic, apology from the siblings via my mom's phone. I'm glad my wife was with me when they called. Her hard stares kept me from saying things I wanted to. I just told them thanks and that we felt no need to discuss it further. Since I thought things were settled, I unblocked them. That evening, I got a text from one of my brother-in-laws telling me that the phones cost them this much money and asking if I'd be paying for them. What? I replied, never. Took a screenshot of his message and sent it to my folks with a note that we were done with this nonsense. We're going no contact with sisters and their spouses and not to invite us to any more holidays or get-togethers if they'll be there. Then I blocked my sisters and their spouses again. At that point, crap really hit the fan. Dad called them and laid into them. Among other things, he told them that grandkids were not welcome at his place indefinitely. Since my mom regularly provides free babysitting, that got them pretty rattled. He also banned them from using the vacation house and told them my wife and I actually own it, not he and Mom. This completely freaked them out. Both of my sisters' families use that place a lot, including having their friends up there for weekend getaways. This was very much out of character for my folks. They'd clearly had it. And for reference, I never wanted my sisters to know that we owned the place. We bought it for my folks. They had always wanted a place in the mountains. Keeping the ownership quiet was just a way to avoid drama with my siblings. A couple of days later, my sisters and their husbands came to our place unannounced to apologize in person. We were out to dinner and they left a note. One sister also called me at work too. I sent her a voicemail. We've decided being no contact is the best thing for the indefinite future and haven't interacted with them for at least 3+ weeks. Personally, I'm done. They can buzz off. Update. It's been less than a month, but I have to say that blocking them has actually made our lives noticeably more peaceful. I hadn't realized how much ongoing low-level drama they create. It's not toxic, they're not bad people, they're just tiresome and petty. And I personally don't care about them using the weekend place. It's ours technically, but we bought it for my folks. They control it and they decide who uses it when they're not there. We pay for all of the operating costs and taxes. One good thing about this blow-up is that we now know what we'll be doing with the property once my folks get older. I was prepared to take over managing it, allocating weekends, maintaining it and such. But now we know we'll just sell it, and if we want to go up to the mountains, we'll just rent an Airbnb. Am I the jerk for telling my niece it's her fault that my horse kicked her? I, 27 female, have a niece who's 14. She's the daughter of my older brother, who's 36, and his wife, who's 34. She's a very sweet girl, and she loves my horses and the other horses I board, which are my friends. My brother and his wife live in the city, while I live in my uncle's ranch on my mother's side in a different state. My brother and I have different moms, but the same dad. They sent my niece to come stay with me for a few months, which I greatly accepted. She's been good, and she calls her friends back at her home state and FaceTimes her parents once in a while. She's a great help with feeding my animals and my horses. The only problem is she doesn't know how to ride horses and sometimes teases the horses. I have two very young horses, a filly and a colt, which are both very excited horses, and I don't really allow her in the field with them, as they like to kick and buck even when people are around. And I have an old stallion, which was my first horse my uncle got me. His name is Rooster, and he's 32 years old. This is my niece's favorite horse. She always wants to ride him, but I don't allow anyone to ride him, and I don't ride him anymore. He's very patient and kind, but he doesn't like anyone touching his back legs or his tail when you walk behind him. He will kick, but when he knows you're there, he doesn't mind being pet, as long as you approach him from the front. Overall, he's a great horse. She'll tease him with a lunging whip by tickling his back legs and his tail, trying to get him to kick. I've told her numerous times and I've warned her, but she still continues to do it behind my back. Well, I told her to go get Rooster out of the pasture and into his stall. She went to go get him, and I heard a scream in the barn. I get over there, and she was holding onto her leg, crying in pain, while Rooster ran back to the pasture. I asked her what happened, and she said Rooster had kicked her left thigh, and I asked her if she had touched Rooster on his back legs or his tail. She said she pushed him on his tail to get him in his stall, and that was when he kicked her and ran off. She started yelling about Rooster and how she doesn't want to be around him. I told her it's her fault. She provoked him and for not listening to me after so many warnings. I told her that bruise on her leg is a lesson now to be careful around bigger animals, especially ones that can kick at any moment. She can walk it off, and she called her parents after. They called me and told me it was my fault for not supervising her and that they're gonna get her home. I told them everything, but they won't listen, and my sister-in-law told me I need to get rid of Rooster. I told her no and hung up. Now I'm wondering, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. 14 is old enough to take directions and warnings. You've told her several times not to do what she did. She didn't listen and continued to do it anyway. Rooster gave her a lesson and why she should listen to warnings and directions. I mean, if you keep telling a kid not to touch a stove because it's hot and they don't listen and touch the stove anyway, are you going to throw the stove out? To me, this is the logic of the mother. OP. I've warned her so many times and she always reassures me she won't do it. But for some reason, she would record teasing my horse Rooster. I even had friends who saw her do it. They told me not to let her around my horses anymore. I thought I could trust her, but now I do believe that she needs to go home. My parents don't like my boyfriend, so they gave me an ultimatum. I'm an only child, and my current boyfriend and I have been dating for 6 years, starting when I was 19 and he was 20. We met at junior college, where we started dating, and after that we went to different universities, but within an hour of each other. My parents met him early on by joining us at dinner. Everything seemed to go well. Then soon after, we went to his parents' house, who live about 2 hours from my parents, so I could meet his family. And after learning this, my mom told me how hurt she was that we didn't come to see them too. I expressed that this weekend was for me to meet his family, but it was clear that she felt almost betrayed. Fast forward, my parents invite me up to our cabin and my boyfriend joins. We take my car because it was already loaded with laundry, etc. After we arrive, my dad pulls me aside and pretty much quietly yells at me for how wrong it is that I drove and that we took my car. He's the man. He should be driving. Blah, blah, blah. This started everything going forward on a sour note. The cabin is in Tahoe. It gets cold in the winter, so my boyfriend wore a sweatshirt with his hood up during some of the time at the cabin. My parents to this day cite this as weird and rude, as well as a reason that they don't like him. As we continue our relationship, it's clear that my parents don't like him, but they can't really give me what would be a good justifiable reason. They'll say he's just not a good fit for the family. They don't tell me to stop dating him because they can't, I'm an adult, but they do tell me that I need to keep them and him separate. They don't want to really hear about him, and he's not welcome at their house or cabin. He's never cheated on me, mistreated me, he doesn't have any issues with substances, nothing like that a normal parent would see as a problem. Eventually, it became an ultimatum given to me by my parents. They'd tell me that if I continue to date him, eventually it will be either him or us, and you'll have to choose. Among other things, they would tell me that he'd never be an attorney, which is what he wanted to do, and insinuating that he probably wouldn't be much of anything at all. After undergrad, I started working at a financial firm. He graduated from undergrad at UC Berkeley and was accepted to law school across the country. We were always very serious about each other and made the decision to do long distance until he graduated and moved back to California. My boyfriend has since graduated from law school, moved home, and took the bar last month. He starts work this October and had a contract since last year. They've known about this as well. Now, 6 years into our relationship, I call my parents and tell them that we're going to be moving in together. About 20 minutes later, I get a text from my mom saying that she doesn't want to rain on my parade, but that this path excludes her and my dad from my future. That they love me, but they can't be in my life if I choose to be with my boyfriend. I told them I would never understand. Since then, they've sent me more and more text messages saying things like, "We feel like we're losing our daughter. This is heartbreaking," etc. And all the same time, including that this is my choice and my fault. I texted my parents that I thought my boyfriend and I should come over and talk, that texting about this kind of thing was stupid, but not to be patronized or belittled, and if it turned to screaming, then we would leave. My parents then replied that they wanted to see me face to face to talk, but that my boyfriend isn't allowed. My boyfriend even called my father the night of the initial "we can't be part of your life" text to try and talk or meet up and see if there was a way to talk through any legitimate concerns. My dad did not answer and did not respond until a week later, only to text him that they haven't really ever liked him. that he wants to work through it with me alone, and it's mine and my boyfriend's fault for not trying to address things earlier. Among other ridiculous reasons to not like my boyfriend were, Berkeley isn't a man's college, my dad. One time in college, my professor lost my final exam, and when I found out via my final grade and was frantically calling her to figure out what happened, my parents told my boyfriend, "See, this is why we didn't want her to have a boyfriend in college." They found ways to blame him for everything. The only thing that ever had any merit was that he wasn't working yet. Well, this was because he was going to school to be a lawyer. Apparently, marrying someone who will make a lot of money is a bad thing. My boyfriend is the nicest, most calm and peaceful person ever, and he loves me more than anything. But apparently, their pride is more important than being wrong and accepting him. I guess I'm just trying to figure out if this is normal, or if it's as wrong as it feels for my boyfriend and I. Edit. Boyfriend, as well as my parents and myself, are of the same race. Somewhat similar financial status as well. No important details left out, I promise. I wanted objective feedback. Believe me, if there was more, my parents would make it known to me and I would have included it in the post. Mom was a career politician, Dad was a firefighter and a politician. I'm an only child, not close to aunts or uncles. Only surviving grandparent is Dad's mom. She was happy to hear that I had tried to get the four of us to talk. I now have to tell her that they declined the offer. She often tells me that she is very sorry that I've been put in this position. They won't compromise, so don't waste your time. I've come to the same conclusion. Me going alone is only their last-ditch attempt to bargain and manipulate my opinion, leaving him out so he can't speak or defend himself just so they can gang up on me and control the narrative. There has to be something else you're not telling us. OP. No, he's white and so are we. I promise it's the whole truth. Parents are conservative and they think anything that deviates from what they would do must be wrong. Boyfriend went to school for longer to do law. Dad thinks he should have started working at age 13, like he did. Boyfriend is definitely open-minded and moderate. Horrible, I know. How is your boyfriend with your parents? OP. Boyfriend is the best. He's never said a bad word about my parents either, despite how awful they've been to him. His parents are wonderful. His dad, who is not a touchy-feely person, even called me and explained how sad it is that my parents are doing this and that he and his wife love me and my boyfriend and support us. Update. After many more hurtful texts from my parents that said they can't accept my partner and that it doesn't matter if he's a good fit for me, if he's not a good fit for my family, then it's never going to work out. I went over in person to meet with them and pick up my legal documents. They made it clear that my boyfriend was not welcome and that this was a family matter. They needed to speak with me only about it. Clear manipulation, obviously. So I went home. I'm on my way. I know what I think and how I feel. I'm very sure of what I plan on saying. It was strange, walking into your parents' house and feeling like you're meeting strangers. Kind of felt like having a 26-year-long relationship and being broken up with via text, then having to go pick up your crap and memories from your ex's house, except that your ex is your parents. After about an hour of small talk, we got into the nitty-gritty conversation about the elephant in the room. A previous text that week had said, "We don't expect you to change your mind, we just want to talk." But it's clear that this in-person meeting was a last-ditch attempt to shake me from my reality and into theirs. They came at me from every angle. "He's not a man's man. I don't respect him. I hate him. He's taking away the most precious thing in our life. How could you not hate someone like that?" My dad was even physically threatening him. My mom was either agreeing or adding little tidbits and reminders of things she doesn't like about him. Some of which are things I mentioned in my previous post, like when I went to meet his family but didn't go see her and my dad too. Mentioning also that she doesn't like that I made the first move to talk to my boyfriend and not the other way around. You get the gist. It was all-out war on my boyfriend. They tell me I'm depriving them of a son-in-law. They say he's selfish for not breaking up with me years ago when he realized that my parents didn't like him. They even started blindly throwing out shots like, "I don't even know if he has any friends." Like, what? Of course you don't. You don't know anything about him because you've made me keep my relationship out of earshot for 6 years. But I digress. It ends up being a 3-hour conversation where I spoke for all of maybe 5 minutes with my heart rate at 150 the whole time. They also don't fail to mention a few other shining points, such as, "We knew you would put this on us. This is not an ultimatum. We are just reacting to your decision and choices," was their reply to me saying, "This is not my choice. This is an ultimatum you've given me, and neither my boyfriend or I want this." "We knew you would make us the bad guys, because we're not team boyfriend." Any of your friends and family who say we will come around or it will get better are lying to you and saying what you want to hear. They asked me why they should like or be impressed by my boyfriend. I told them various accolades. Dad replied with, "Education doesn't impress me." I told them how wonderful he was through some of the toughest times in my life, college, and how he supported and kept me sane when even my parents were coming down on me about how I wasn't doing enough. They said, "That's what any boyfriend would do." No, Mom and Dad, it's not. And the two of you certainly were making me feel worse the entire time. They said because my boyfriend's dad helped him get through school by paying his tuition that he's had everything in life handed to him. Dad said, "I think your mom is having an epiphany about who you're becoming," like I'm some monster. They said, "We feel like you're not listening to us," because I'm not just blindly agreeing to break up with my boyfriend. Dad said, "This kind of thing happens all the time," as if that makes it normal or justified. At the end, I have to break the news that in between all of the hurtful texts and prior to this meeting, my boyfriend and I signed a lease and moved in together. Nothing they were going to say was going to sway me otherwise. Even they said that. So we had taken the leap and made the move the weekend before this meeting. I was commuting about 20 to 30 minutes before the move, and my commute is the same after the move. Only difference is we now live in the same city that my boyfriend, new attorney with crazy early and late hours, works in. Believe me, I had all kinds of requirements prior to this move. It had to be safe, have a washer, dryer, safe parking, etc. And it's only for a year or two while we save money so we can buy a home. Contrary to my parents' belief, I'm capable of rational decisions. I tell them first that we signed the lease and where it is. You know, try and lighten the blow that I am outright disobeying them. They start going off about how, "Oh, of course, making it easy on him again." They saw me always going to my boyfriend's house as me catering to him, even though the only reason was because we were never comfortable being together at their house. Then of course he became essentially banished. So they see this move as me being some smitten teenage idiot, not about how this is a relationship with compromise. They tell me that my commute is going to be brutal and that I'm lying to myself if I think it's not. Again, I've already been doing it for a week. I know it's not any worse. It's even a prettier drive. But it's clear that I can't slowly ease into it and have to just rip off the band-aid because they're straight up just wrong and trying to convince me that I don't know what I'm talking about. So I say, "I've already been doing it for a week. We moved in last weekend." They were just dumbfounded. Like, "I thought you guys said you weren't planning on changing my mind, so why are you so surprised that I just went ahead and made my choice?" My mom starts crying. My dad keeps saying, "You messed up, kid." It's about 10 p.m. at this point, so now that they know I have a slightly longer drive home, they're kind of sweeping me out the door so I can get home before it gets too late. My mom gives me this big sobbing hug. At this point, I've run out of tears. I was crying throughout the entire conversation, but at this point, I was just over it. My dad, who rarely even tells me that he loves me, gives me this awkward, desperate hug too that just kind of makes me roll my eyes. I get in the car and drive home, just totally exhausted and confused. Truthfully, they did a good job of, again, making me question my own thoughts and choices. But I get home and just start spilling everything that they said to my boyfriend. He's not surprised, but as I said in my last post, he remains Swiss in all of this and doesn't say anything crappy about them. He just holds me close and lets me vent. I still get very emotional about all of this. It's a fresh wound. I mourn the relationship I had with my mom and the one I will never have with my dad. My health is definitely suffering at the moment from all this stress, but I'm working on getting my mental health back, and I know my body will follow. Breaking the wheel is hard and terrifying. It's like being a crate-trained puppy forever and finally being allowed to go outside, but outside is unknown. The crate is all you've ever known, and even though you know the crate is confining and freedom is in front of you, it's also unfamiliar, uncertain, and frightening. You know what's behind you, and it's easy to want to run back to it. But no matter what's in front of you, it's better than the crate. The crate is not living for yourself, it's living for someone else. So go out and make your own life. I'm done, and I'm heartbroken. I have no one. I've been married for 15 years. I've known my wife since I was 8. We have 3 daughters together who are 17, 14, and 11. I'm tired of feeling like an outsider in my relationships with all of them. I'm just an ATM and a taxi service to my kids. My wife hasn't kissed me in 6 months. She's not said that she loves me in 1.5 years. No matter how much I communicate, try to plan anything or do anything, it's always shot down, forgotten, or dismissed. I don't get angry and I don't yell. I don't get physical. I like to splurge during birthdays and Mother's Day. I throw parties and give gifts and try to show how much I love them. I get a lukewarm thanks, and if I'm lucky, a side hug that lasts 0.01 seconds. This week was the breaking point. Father's Day. I woke up to an empty house. Odd. No note. Nothing was written on the calendar, and nothing said beforehand. I send a text, and I get back, "I took the girls out for a spa day. Don't wait up." Then nothing. Literally nothing. Dinner time comes around, and they get home. How was their day? It was fine. I ask what they would like for dinner. Nothing. We already ate at one of my favorite restaurants. Cool, whatever. There's no mention of it being Father's Day. No I love you, no how are you, nothing. Fast forward to Wednesday, which was my birthday. Nothing. Literally again, nothing. I suggested plans. They get shot down. I suggested food. Nope, shot down. I ask about watching a movie, and they're all too busy. They just sat on their phones doing nothing. Now to Thursday night, I'm in bed. My wife is next to me. She rolls over and says in a crappy tone, "Oh, your birthday was the other day. I guess you expect to hook up." That broke something in me, best of my memory of how it went down. I said, "No, I don't expect that. At this point, I don't expect anything anymore." Her, "What's that supposed to mean?" So I started asking her questions. When was the last time we kissed each other? Like a week? Nope. It was in December, and it was during her parents' holiday party. When was the last time we hooked up? The beginning of the year? Nope, wrong. It's been over a year. She was adamant that we did in February. I was dealing with my mom's health and her passing, so I said something like, "You may have hooked up with someone, but it wasn't with me." When was the last time you said you love me? I say it all the time. Not to me. Check your messages, and you don't say it to my face. Well, you should just know I do. When was the last time we went on a date? Long pause. Her, "You're being unfair." Emotions turned on fully. I was crying and raising my voice at this point. I ask her how, and she can't answer. I asked her how wanting any sign of love from anyone in the house is unfair. If expecting anything for my birthday or Father's Day was unfair. She got a look on her face. Yeah, you forgot that as well. I'm not an ATM, I'm not a taxi service, I'm not a punching bag. She asked why this was coming up out of the blue. It didn't. I've tried to talk to my family, and again to get dismissed or ignored. I brought up examples. I got an, "I didn't know you were serious. I didn't know it was such a big deal." I left saying something to the point of, "If you want to pretend that I'm invisible and don't exist, fine. You don't have to pretend anymore." I left the house at almost midnight on Thursday/Friday morning. Haven't been home since. I'm not sure what to do now. I'm finally sober enough to think, but I don't know what to do. First time drinking in over 15 years, by the way, and I'm not going to drink anymore. I love my family, but I can't keep this up. I don't know what more I can do. I think they would be happier without me. They already act like I don't exist. I can't be the one who is blamed for everything. If I truly am the problem, then me not being there should fix it. I can't do it anymore. I've tried to be a good provider, a good partner, and a good dad. Never missed an event for our kids. Never prioritized work. I kept good hours so I could see them more. Took on more responsibility to better our life and future, but it never is appreciated. It's never enough. I'm never enough. I only have one message from my wife. I'm sorry for making you feel that way. We all love you and are here for you when you want to come home and talk. That's it. No other messages, no calls, nothing from the kids. I feel like if they really wanted me there, they would try reaching out more. All of the kids have their own phone. I don't know what she told them. I'm sure they heard me raise my voice. Me raising my voice would have definitely got their attention since I never do. I'm sure they heard me leave. I just don't know. Edit. Thanks everyone. I did not think anyone would care. You've given me some hope and advice that I'm going to look into. I'm going to try to figure things out more. I'm now 100% sober, so my mind is clearer. I'm going to start meeting with people on Monday and try to come up with options. Update. I have not been well, but I'm doing better. You guys have helped me a lot, and it's more than you know. I was able to get help through my work. They have resources for both therapy as well as legal counsel. But somehow, my boss found out I was reaching out and now won't leave me alone, but that's unimportant. I know she only has good intentions. So far, I like the new therapist I was able to get an appointment with. I thought there would be a long wait list. She recommended a family/spousal therapist as she focuses more on individuals. I talked to them as well. I got referred to divorce lawyers. I don't want to use them, but I had to talk with them and got an idea of what that route would be like. I'll be like 70% done for, but we are an at-fault state, so if it turns out she's cheating, I'll be okay-ish. My kids did reach out after a few days, worried. I told them I'm fine. I do truly love them and miss them, but I needed space and time. For the first time ever, I missed some of their extracurricular activities. I think that's what made them understand something was really wrong. Some other family members and friends noticed and started asking questions to all involved. My kids also mentioned how things were not the same without me around, and my wife was struggling. My wife reached out a few times just checking in, apologizing, giving me updates on things, and a couple of the times she asked about the 4th of July. We usually host a party and a barbecue. I said I wasn't interested, but I said that her and I needed to talk alone in person. That happened the weekend after the 4th. Apparently, she was planning the 4th as a surprise birthday party for me after I had left to make up for forgetting my birthday, but I ruined it as I didn't go and wasn't interested. When we met up to talk, she wasn't alone and brought the kids. I was happy to see them. They seemed happy to see me as well, but I asked for my wife and I to talk alone. When I pointed this out, she said the kids missed me and it was fine. We can talk with them here. I believe it was more of a manipulation move. I explained that this was another example of how my feelings or wants get ignored and cast aside, how I've been ignored for a while, and how that is not right by anyone. She kept apologizing. I said while I acknowledge the apologies, I don't accept them. Most of the apologies, to me, feel like they're not real, such as her initial apology of, "I'm sorry you feel that way," or they sound forced and just saying what she thinks I want to hear. Actions speak louder than those empty words. I also said that she's setting an example and expectations on how I'm treated and how our daughters will see me and treat me and their future relationships. As of now, no one should be treated this way. I think at this point, my wife regretted bringing the kids. My 14-year-old took my 11-year-old for some snacks, and my 17-year-old stayed. I flat out asked if there was anyone else, if she was cheating physically or emotionally or otherwise. She looked at me in shock. She said she would never do that. I asked why she was so adamant about us hooking up in February. Daughter had left at this point, when it's been way longer. Why has every part of our romance died within a year span from her part? She didn't know. We talked for an additional 20 minutes. I finally took out 2 folders I had with me. One was a separation document, not quite a divorce, but halfway to it. The other was therapist referrals for individuals and couples. I needed her to understand how serious I and the situation was. I asked her to look over each of them and ask herself what she wanted, but she had to make the decision and schedule the appointments. I explained that I'm done living this way, and if she chooses to stay with me, then there are going to be major changes occurring both in our relationship and at home. I love the woman I married, had kids with, and built a life together, but I don't know where she went. My kids came back, and my 11-year-old was mad I wasn't going back with them that night. I gave my wife time. She contacted me the next day, saying she's made appointments for herself and for her and I. She explained that she set up some bi-weekly individual therapy, and we have our first couples therapy early next month. The reason for the wait was so that she could establish and work on herself first. I've been using the gray rock method towards her since the initial incident, per yours and my therapist's recommendations. So it's a work in progress. I'm not in as dark of a place as I was when I first posted. Some things are better now. I'm willing to put in the work, but it won't be one-sided. There is a plan moving forward, so that's a plus. I've been home for a week now, but I'm sleeping in a different room. Some changes have been put in place already, but time will be the real test. Am I the jerk for calling my husband inconsiderate for messing up our son's food order? I'm 44 female. My husband is 44 male. Our sons are 11 and 13. 11-year-old had some medical procedures today and asked for takeout from one of his favorite restaurants. I called my husband to ask him to order because I was driving. Husband ordered and picked it up. 11-year-old asked for his chicken and husband brings him a wing. 11-year-old starts crying because he eats drumsticks, like every kid. Husband only ordered a wing and a thigh. 11-year-old has always eaten the same pieces, a drumstick and a breast to be specific. Husband got mad that I didn't tell him exactly what to order. I said, if you don't know what your 11-year-old eats, then you don't know him. For background, we order from this place every month or so for over a decade. We each get the same things every time. Husband and I order equally. He handles the food, cooking and takeout about 75% of the time. A little bit later, I told my husband that I don't want to fight, but this is exactly what I'm talking about when I say he's not considerate. That all 3 of us feel like he doesn't care about us when he does this kind of stuff. I told him that 13-year-old said, Dad always forgets the important stuff, when he found out why 11-year-old was crying. We all feel like he doesn't care when he forgets basic stuff about us. He dismissed me, saying that doesn't mean I don't care about you. I said, "We feel like you don't care, and you can't tell us how to feel." I've come to realize over the last year or so that my husband is inconsiderate, not just forgetful. Other examples: he will eat their last of a food or a snack and not ask if they want it. I had a leg injury this year, and a cast and a walker, and he left things in the walkway even after I pointed out there was stuff in my way and I can't get around it. He had to take care of 13-year-old's birthday cake because of my injury and didn't get candles. 13-year-old was upset, and husband got mad that no one appreciates that he got the cake. We've been together for 23 years and he's never gotten me a cake, let alone put candles in it. His birthday is 6 weeks before mine. I always get him a cake or special dessert, put candles in it, and sing happy birthday with the kids. So, am I the jerk for calling my husband inconsiderate over a minor thing like messing up a food order? Not the jerk. This incident is obviously bringing up a whole lot of unresolved issues for you, but that doesn't make you wrong or unfair. If you're not letting your kids know how you feel about your father's forgetfulness, then it really is alarming that they are also noticing it. I'd suggest getting some family therapy or in the very least couples counseling, because it's especially alarming that he's dismissing any culpability at all. This sounds like my ex-husband. Ate the last banana when I specifically said, "Make sure you don't eat the last banana tomorrow as our kid with braces needs it for morning tea at school. I'll get some on my way home from school tomorrow." You're obviously undertaking the entire mental load for your family. Kids liked it when we got divorced. Dad tools them for waffles, bowling, and the cinema every second weekend. They had a routine and a few supplies with me, but all good. They still live with me while attending college. Rarely see his selfishness now. Everyone sucks here. Stop focusing on chicken and realize you have a much bigger issue. You and your husband clearly have a communication issue which neither of you are comfortable dealing with like adults. Your son is 11, not 2. I like wings, but if I have to eat a drumstick, I'll eat it. Your son falling apart over not getting the piece of chicken he wanted makes him sound like a spoiled, entitled brat. Stop enabling this behavior. The family situation is toxic, but it isn't only your husband who's causing it. Babysitter's revenge. I was young, maybe 15 or so, and would pick up odd babysitting gigs for extra money. I took a night for a household that was on my paper route. They asked me to be there on a Saturday for 8:30, and I arrived a few minutes early. The parents were still getting ready, and they asked me to watch their kids while they prepared to head out. They left the house at about 9:15. Before they headed out, the wife gave me some very specific instructions. I could have a snack, 2 Oreos on the counter, nothing else. She said she poured a glass of milk for me and left it in the fridge. It was right next to the plastic milk jug with a piece of tape on it showing the level. She told me she'd check it when she got back, and if I took any extra milk, I would have to answer for it. The kids were okay. Those people like their milk, don't they? The kids were okay, went to bed without any fuss, and the parents returned home at 12:20. Mom paid me for 3 hours about 10 minutes after they arrived. Excuse me, but this isn't right. I got here before 8:30, and now it's almost 12:30. That's 4 hours, not 3. We didn't leave until 9:15, and we got home at 12:15. I'm only paying you for 3 hours. But I was watching the kids from 8:30. That doesn't matter. We were home, and you weren't in charge. We were. I took the money and rode my bike home. A couple of weeks later, they did pretty much the same thing. 2 things are important. First, the wife was a neat freak. I'm guessing now she had OCD. Everything was lined up perfectly. One of the kids spilled his drink, and I was looking for some paper towels. The cleaning supplies under the sink were perfectly lined up. Same with the pantry. Every jar and can was in a row with the label facing directly to the front. Second, this was in the mid-70s, and all canned food had paper labels. So, the 3rd time they called me in to babysit, they were late leaving again, and I knew that I was going to get shortchanged for the time I was there. I was steaming. So I went into the pantry and tore the labels off each and every can. All of them. She had a shelf for Campbell's soup, another for canned veggies, another for canned fruits, and I scrambled the unlabeled cans. When they got home, sure enough, she tried to short me. You know what? Keep your money. I don't want it, and I'm never babysitting for you again. As of today, I'm stopping delivering your newspapers as well. So if you want to read the paper, you're going to have to go buy it at the corner store. I stormed out. I wish I could have seen the expression on her face when she opened the pantry door and saw the shelf after shelf of bare metal cans. My wife won't let me attend my favorite band's concert. Context. My favorite band is coming into town this week, and we've been planning on going to this concert for a long time. The band, my wife introduced me to, and it's now my favorite band. She takes pride in that and wants us to experience the concert together. She also loves them a lot. Here's the problem. My wife is 36 weeks pregnant. She doesn't and probably can't go to the concert because of the loud music, the crowds, etc. When I say that I still want to go, she's furious and frequently cries about it. She is pregnant, so I understand the crying. I can't help but feel as if she's being selfish, and just because she can't enjoy the concert doesn't mean I can't as well. What do you guys think? Am I the jerk? Edit. Okay, this blew up. I just want to add further information. First of all, I see everyone getting upset with me. I understand, but please take into consideration, this is the reason I came to this subreddit. Not because I feel as if I'm in the right. I'm asking because I wanted to seek the opinions of others. I tried to sell the tickets, but no one has bought them. I put them up for sale 2 weeks ago, and the tickets totaled to $600. I asked all of our friends, and they're all busy, so I didn't want them to go to waste. I said we planned it for a long time. That is the case. Since it's her first pregnancy, she didn't know how she would feel, and now she isn't comfortable going. I also want to add, we planned this with a group of friends, not just us. I didn't feel the need to add this information because personally I didn't think it would blow up. For those of you who are asking, this band is very niche and hasn't toured in years, especially since lockdown. She isn't worried about preterm labor, just upset that I would go without her. You're the jerk. Your wife is more important than a concert. Put her first and sell the tickets to someone else, and buy her some flowers as an apology. You're the jerk. Be serious. How do you think she feels knowing that you're going to go to a concert that she would enjoy but can't go to? Besides, this late in the pregnancy, she definitely needs your support and assistance. What if something goes wrong while you're at the concert? At this point, I would be putting all activities that place you out of reach on hiatus. She's sacrificing her entire body and mental health to grow your child. She can't drink, eat certain foods, or even sit comfortably. How have you contributed to the growth of this baby? You haven't. How about you make a small sacrifice and stay home? You're the jerk. You're the jerk. You can't be serious. If I were her, I'd seriously be calling a divorce lawyer ASAP. What kind of partner would leave his pregnant wife at home to go to a concert that you knew she wanted to go to, but can't because she's pregnant? You sound like a horrible spouse, and I guarantee you'll be an even worse father than you are husband if you're selfish enough to even think about doing something like this. I hope she sees this as the major red flag that it is and dumps your sorry butt pronto. Why she would have a kid with someone like you is beyond me. Not the jerk. You and your wife both deserve to do things every now and then that you enjoy, even if the other one can't come along for whatever reason. If I were pregnant, which I haven't been in a long time, and my husband wanted to go to a concert that I couldn't attend, I'd tell him to have a good time and bring me back a souvenir. Edit. You can insult me however you'd like, but why on earth would you attack my husband over this? He was the best man I ever knew, and he went home to be with the Lord 12 years ago. He'd be rolling over in his grave if he saw how ridiculous some of you are. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. If Reddit Boy tried to go to a concert without me, I'd celebrate. Very rarely do I get a moment away from this guy. Free pumpkin pies for everyone. This is a story from many years ago when grocery stores were closed on Christmas and Thanksgiving. I worked for a small chain of grocery stores in the Mid-Atlantic and the deli. Santoni's, shout out. A day before Thanksgiving, the bakery manager asked if anybody from our department would be willing to stay and work all night, just baking pumpkin pies for orders. We were open the day before Thanksgiving till 4, then closed Thanksgiving. I volunteered as I was a college student on Thanksgiving break. I came to work that night and was left a note about temps, timing, and packaging, but no numbers or quantities. This made me nervous, so I called the manager at home and said, "How many pies do you want me to bake?" She told me to keep baking until she came in, and I questioned that, asking, "How many pies exactly do you want me to make?" She obviously was irritated and told me that I didn't need to worry about how many, just keep cooking until she came in at 5. Okay, cue malicious compliance. I loaded a 6-wheeler cart with frozen pies, put them on trays, and started baking. As the pies were baking, I prepped racks ahead of time and folded boxes while pies cooled. I was a logistical savant. Everything went perfectly, and I was a machine operating at optimal efficiency. By the time she came in at 5, I had cooked every pumpkin pie in her freezer. She lost it. "What the heck is going on? What am I supposed to do with all these pies? You cooked over 400 pies, and I only have orders for 100. The store manager, hearing the commotion, came over and asked what was going on. She said,
"She cooked every pie we have in the store, even the Christmas ones. What am I supposed to do with all these pies?"
He asked, "Why did you cook all the pies?" And I told him, "She told me to." He asked her if that was true, and she said,
"No, well, I told her keep cooking until I got here, but nobody's ever cooked that many before. I didn't even think it would be close."
"Then this is on you," he replied and walked away. The best part was that since we were closed the next day, the employees were allowed to take all the leftover bakery items home with them. I took home 10 pumpkin pies and multiple bags of bread and rolls. Every other employee in the store was very, very grateful. My Karen neighbor demands I make my baby stop crying. I'm the father of a 1-year-old toddler. Recently, she started teething as her molars have started to come in. First, it was the top ones for about a week. Then we had a week's break, and now the bottom ones are coming in. It's clearly causing my daughter a lot of pain, especially at night. Before, she was a good sleeper, but now it's been rough. She's been waking up around 1 a.m. and then 3 a.m. daily, screaming with her little fingers in her mouth. My wife and I have tried comforting her, bringing her in our bed. She sleeps in our room anyway, and her crib is next to our bed, but normally she likes to sleep cuddled up when she's uncomfortable. We've even given her baby Motrin to help her with the pain, but she still screams for about 10 to 20 minutes each time until we're able to settle her down. It's shrill and it sucks, but there's not much we can do beyond what we're already doing. We live on the ground floor of a new condo building. It's made of heavy concrete and decently soundproofed, but it's not perfect. Above us lives a single woman in her late 20s, early 30s. This is an expensive part of town in a new building, so we can assume she's decently moneyed. She also keeps her balcony door open all day and night, and it faces directly into our courtyard. She's been punishing us during the day by blasting loud music directly into our unit by putting a stereo next to her balcony. We're on the ground floor, and we have a fully enclosed courtyard, so it vibrates around. She's got great music taste, and my daughter will just dance to it all day long. So while my wife hates her intention, I think it's worked out just fine. Until now. Last night, she came barging down at 3 a.m. and rang our bell 4 times while we were trying to settle our daughter. Motrin works for about 8 hours, so by 3 a.m. we have to give her another dose and wait through the cries, cradling her for 15 to 20 minutes for it to kick in again. My wife, a strong-tempered petite woman, amplified by her first year of motherhood, wanted to go fight her then and there. But I said, let's just concentrate on settling the baby and ignore her. I also didn't want to make the baby any more upset than she already was. So yeah, I just let her fume outside my door at 3 a.m. Am I the jerk? Update. I delivered a small care package to her door with a long letter and a bottle of wine and chocolates. But your neighbor treated you like that and you gave her wine and chocolates? Bruh. She was not home, so I put it next to her door. We're only here for a couple of months, temporary rental until we finish construction, but I'd rather offer an olive branch than see all the pettiness continue. Yes, it sucks to be woken up. Yes, it's a shared building. Yes, people throw parties here until 3 a.m. on the weekends. Yes, babies cry and we try our best. For those who live in very big cities, mine has 22 million, this is what you experience. I'm listening to loud mariachi music from the neighbor across the way right now. Everyone sucks here. Your comments about her are awful, especially that daddy is paying her way. Her response with the loud music is childish. Is there some reason why you can't move the doses of Motrin so that it works all night? Maybe a dose at 11 p.m. That would allow all of you to get a much-needed night's sleep. Also, I think they make cold teething rings to help with pain. Try harder, for you, your kid, and your neighbor. Also, go to a doctor. How is the baby screaming loud enough to disrupt someone else's life in a, from his words, pretty soundproof building? And doctors tell you to stay ahead of the pain. They shouldn't wait until the kid is screaming to finally give her pain meds. They know she's teething. Why are they letting her reach that level of agony? Info. About giving her dose later at night. You mean there's another way than waking up the building at 3 a.m. every single night? Also, good job at deleting the daddy line, which was causing you to gain some of the you're the jerk judgments. The daddy line is still in the auto mod comment for those who want to see it. OP is the jerk for deleting it to make him sound like less of a jerk. I felt like OP used some pretty harsh and leading words to describe the neighbor, even after OP removed the daddy line. You're the jerk, and I have 4 kids. I shared a wall with college students when I had babies, So I have first-hand experience with the music versus baby conflicts. OP needs to extend an olive branch to all direct neighbors, box of muffins, or a gift card from a local coffee place with a note apologizing for the nighttime baby noise. Maybe a comment about loving her taste in music during the day for this. The neighbor bangs on his door in the middle of the night, and y'all really think he should give her gifts? Bruh.
Stop it, Reddit boy. Remember your blood pressure.
No, someone comes banging on my door at 3 a.m. I'm not gonna give them gifts. I'm gonna kick their.
Stop it, Reddit boy. Stop it. I can't. Don't do it, Reddit boy. Reddit boy, you have ascended. It feels so good to fight.
A lawyer's pro-revenge on the fraudster who stole all his money. A while back, I got suckered by a fraudster, and I lost our life savings. This is the story of how I got suckered and how I got my money back, with interest. Why do you want to move our money? My wife said. Mega Bank does a pretty good job at managing it. Each month, my wife took our surplus income and dumped it into our retirement plan and other investments, and for years it had been growing. It had started out as a nest egg, but now it was actual money. Real money. Not enough to retire on, but a great start. Mega Bank is just hugging the index, I said. I was parroting a phrase I'd heard from a fast-talking fraudster who had given a seminar for the local bar association. My wife asked what it meant, and I explained. Mega Bank is basically just buying the index and charging us for the privilege. We could do the same thing they are, but without paying them a percentage. Then why don't we just do that? Let's exit the Mega Bank Mutual Fund and buy the index. That way our money is safe. I shook my head. We can do way better. The fraudster seminar had lasted barely an hour, but now I was an expert on the stock market. Look, a bunch of guys from the local bar association are all joining in with this guy. He's got a great track record. Edward Lee Shore was the man's name, and he was an investing genius. His funds had made steady returns above market for years. I showed my wife the glossy brochure I'd picked up at the seminar that morning. She took it from me and flipped through it. If he promised crazy high returns, then I'd know he was shady. But that's not what he's promising, she said. Just good, steady returns. Exactly. He's got this new thing he buys called principal protected notes, and that means you can't lose your principal. Really? My trusting wife said, and I told her, yes, really, and talked her into transferring all our funds to the Genius Investors Company, Lee Shore Investments. People reading this are going to say that I should have known this was BS right from the start, and maybe they're right. But the thing is, I didn't come for money. And when it came to finance, my BS detector wasn't very well calibrated. In the middle-class home I grew up in, money was for spending. Sure, my parents saved, sort of, but for the most part, money was for spending. And so when I reached my 30s and found to my surprise that I had surplus income, I didn't know what to do with it. I had no notion, no idea at all, until I met Edward Lee Shore, the genius investor, the man who told me what to do with my money. So my wife gave me her okay, and a guy from Lee Shore Investments came by our house with papers, a pen, and glib talk. My wife and I signed these papers here and there, next to the little blue X's, over and over again, and while we signed, the man talked, and when he finished talking and when we finished signing, he left. He didn't leave any copies, my wife said. I guess he'll send them to us in the mail, I said. But the man had left one piece of paper, a little blurb about the awesomeness of Lee Shore Investments, and how their money was all in accounts with Mega Bank invested in principal protected notes, and so their clients' money was doubly secure, financially invincible. The blurb included the company's website, and the fast-talking sales guy had walked me through setting up our username and password. We'll be able to monitor our investments real-time, I said to my wife. Mega Bank never offered that. With them, we had to wait for the monthly statement. But now, I'm going to check out our balance every day, and if we aren't making the money that they promised, I'll let you know right away. I kept the first part of that promise, and that's the only reason I got our money back. As for the second, my wife and I disagree on whether I kept that part of the bargain. The main branch of Mega Bank was downtown, taking up the entire ground floor of the same building where I worked on the 15th floor. I walked through Main Branch almost every day on my way to court and back. The windows of Main Branch and the entire building were coated with layers of precious metal. On cloudy days, the tower looked like it was silver, and when it rained, copper. But on good days, the tower gleamed golden, and on those days, which were most days, Mega Bank reigned supreme over the financial sector. A couple of days after we gave our money to Lee Shore Investments, I was walking through Main Branch. Main Branch was as big inside as a cathedral, and I felt like I was in a church that was dedicated to money. I had no business at Mega Bank that day, no deposits to make, nothing to do, but I heard a voice call my name, and I turned. "How's it going, OP?" a voice said. It was the floor's senior financial advisor, a woman close to retirement. Mega Bank had her on a high-profile desk, the one for servicing local professionals, mostly lawyers. Not bad, I said. "Sorry to see your money's leaving us," the advisor said. Lee Shore Investments had acted fast after I signed the papers, and I was pleased to see that the transfer was underway. I explained that, technically speaking, the money wasn't actually leaving Mega Bank, that I was merely switching financial managers, that's all. "Lee Shore banks with you guys," I said. "Their office is upstairs, just like mine." "It's not quite the same," the advisor said, explaining that if a Mega Bank broker messed up, the bank was there to answer for it. But if Lee Shore lost my money, I'd be without recourse. "I know you know this," the advisor said, "and I've made this speech to a bunch of our lawyer clients over the last while, people like you who are moving their money to Lee Shore. But I have to say it, just a little warning, that's all." I made polite thank you noises, accompanied by a little nod. "And you can always come back, you know," the advisor said. "We never say no to money." I thanked her again and walked on to the elevator banks, and a few minutes later I was at my desk, logging into Lee Shore's website, using the credentials that the fast-talking sales guy had left behind after his visit. I could see all my investments online on Lee Shore's website. There were 6 facilities invested in various things. The balances for all 6 accounts fluctuated slightly right before my eyes, and next to them was a box showing green for positive, red for negative. 4 were green, 2 were red, but only slightly, and already the fund had earned a small gain. Nothing spectacular, but a gain. That night, my wife and I checked the Lee Shore's website again and saw that they had finished the day up almost 1/3 of a point. Not bad, on a day when the market was flat. The next day, I was coming back from court and was walking through Main Branch of Mega Bank. Although I had moved my investments, I was still a customer. Mega Bank had my firm's trust and general accounts, and my staff and I popped in and out occasionally to do this and that. The financial advisor spotted me and called me over. "Sorry about the delay with one of your funds," she said. "What delay?" "Your wife didn't sign one of the forms," she said, passing it over the counter. It was one of the Lee Shore investment transfer forms that the fast-talking money guy had placed before us for signature. I looked at it and saw that, like the advisor said, my wife had missed one of the signatures. "So where's the money?" I said. "Still with us. Just get your wife's signature and we'll move it over right away." I took the form with me and headed up to my office. With a coffee in hand, I closed my office door and turned on my monitor. After a few clicks, I was back on the website of Lee Shore Investments, looking at how my life savings were doing. I could see that the market was down, but my money with Lee Shore was holding its own, treading water in the unsteady market, keeping its place. I looked at the facilities, all 6 of them, and wondered how all 6 facilities could be performing well when one of the facilities had not been transferred. It didn't make any sense. Mega Bank had sent Lee Shore only 5 of my funds, yet Lee Shore recorded all 6 being in their hands. The proof was right on my screen. A few minutes later, I was back downstairs at Mega Bank, in advisor's office, and we looked at her screen. "The 6th fund is still with us," she said, pointing at her screen, and I looked where she pointed, and she was right. 5 of the accounts were gone, but 1 remained, a joint investment account, the one that my wife had forgotten to sign off on. "This doesn't make any sense," I said. The advisor agreed that it made no sense. "There must be some explanation," I said, and the advisor suggested that I call Lee Shore. I used her desk phone, and when I called Lee Shore's office, the receptionist put me right through to Edward Lee Shore himself. I explained that I was with my old advisor and that I had a question. I explained the problem. "Oh, that," he said. "Sure, that happens sometimes. I would have mentioned it to you myself, but Mega Bank was late telling us that the transfer didn't go through." "But why does it show on your system that my money is there? Why can we see it on the screen?" Edward Lee Shore explained it to me. Something about margin and leverage, and money transfer protocols, and wires and ETFs, and making sure the customer was covered. "It's all about customer service, making sure our people are taken care of, even when Mega Bank drops the ball," he said, adding that I was a valued customer and he wouldn't be charging me any extra fees for making sure I was in the market while we waited for Mega Bank to hand over the money. "Thanks," I said, and put down the phone. I hadn't understood a word that he said. I looked across at the advisor. She had been in the business for decades, and she would be able to translate what Edward Lee Shore had just told me. "That was just a bunch of money words," she said. "I couldn't make heads or tails out of it." I didn't like that. I didn't like that at all. I'd felt a chill in my office a few minutes earlier, but that was nothing compared to what I was feeling now. "Can you transfer the money back to me?" I said. "No," the advisor said. "The money is with Lee Shore now, and we need their consent to move it." "Thanks," I said. I left her office, walking fast, then really fast, and when I reached the elevators, I pounded the up button until a door opened, and then I hammered the button for the 15th floor so far that my hand hurt. "Cancel my appointments," I said to my senior secretary as I passed by her desk. I shut the door to my office and sat at my desk, my head in my hands. Lee Shore's website was on my screen, showing my balances, but I didn't trust those balances anymore. One of them was obviously completely fictitious, showing the performance of an investment that had yet to reach Lee Shore's office. The balance on the 6th facility was BS, and if it was BS, so were the others. Edward Lee Shore had defrauded me. He had done it easily, almost without effort. He had opened his mouth, and after listening to him blah 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 for an hour, I'd gone home and persuaded my wife to give him everything we'd saved. Now we had almost nothing, and it was 100% my fault. My face burned with embarrassment and shame. First, for being taken like an ignorant guy, and second, because I did not know what to tell my wife. We had only one account of 6 left, and a small one at that. I'd lost almost everything, and we'd be starting from financial scratch. You'd think that a lawyer would be able to figure out what to do. By this point, I'd been at the bar for close to a decade, and I knew my way around the courts. But I wasn't just the lawyer this time, I was the victim, and I did what most victims do. I panicked. Before I could properly consider the matter, I swung into action and started a series of maneuvers intended to fix things, but which only made it worse. "What's up?" Edward Lee Shore said when I called him for the second time that day. I explained that I had changed my mind, that my wife and I wanted our money back. I kept my voice very polite and under control. "No can do," he said to me affably. "It's a locked-in fund, guaranteed for a year at least. You're a lawyer. You ought to read the fine print. I can't let you out. It would upset the balance of the fund." I don't know why I thought politeness would work, but it didn't, and I went to my default setting when things didn't go my way for something that matters to me. "Listen," I said, "I don't give a hoot about any of that. I really don't. You've had my money for all of 5 minutes, and I want it back now." He hung up on me, and when I went up a few floors to confront him personally, his office was locked. I banged on the door. I yelled. I raged. Then I heard a voice, Shore's voice, speaking to me from the other side of the door. "You should have read the fine print," he said. "Come see me in a year." That was my first move, to alert Edward Lee Shore that I was onto him. I made more mistakes that day, but letting Lee Shore know that I was onto him was the first and the biggest. Everything that happened after that flowed from that first mistake. I was still panicking, and I was thinking like a victim, like a client. What does any client do when they're desperate and need help right away? They hire a lawyer. I was in a tall downtown building filled with law firms, and I went to the first one I could think of. The receptionist made me wait for 30 minutes while she called here and there, looking for a lawyer who was free. Finally, she found someone, and I was taken to a small office where a lawyer greeted me. I explained the problem, the amounts involved, the urgency of immediate action. "Well," the man said, "you did agree to lock in the money for a year. You should have read the fine print. You can't prove fraud, so I don't see that you have much to go on." We talked back and forth for a while, but he was firm. There was no remedy. I'd have to wait the year that I had agreed to, and then I could ask for my money back. If he doesn't give it back to you then, feel free to return and we'll help you out. That was his advice, for which he charged $1,000. I left the lawyer's office feeling way worse than I had when I'd walked in. After falling for Lee Shore's huge fraud, I'd fallen for a law firm's smaller one, paying good money for crappy legal advice. But I was still in client mode, so I went to another law firm in the same building. I went to reception, told them I had an emergency, and after a while, they took me to a lawyer's office. He was more senior than the first guy, corner office and all that, and his advice was more concrete. "Mariva injunction all the way," he said. "You give me the go-ahead, and we'll have the papers filed within a day, and we'll be in front of a judge within a week." "A week?" I said. "Commercial litigation court's packed this week. 2 judges on vacation, and another is in the hospital. A week's the best I can do." "Okay, but how about an injunction of some kind, a court order to freeze the funds?" I hadn't mentioned that I was a lawyer. I'd been too embarrassed to admit that. So I had to sit there and listen patiently as he explained there could be no execution before judgment, no judgment before there was a lawsuit, and no injunction until there was a motion, and no motion unless they could get a court date, which he could not, at least for a week. A week's plenty of time, unless your target knows you're coming. An hour earlier, I'd been outside Lee Shore's office, pounding on the door and screaming that I wanted my money right now. I don't think we have a week, I said. I headed back to my office, poorer by yet another $1,000. I sat at my desk, stunned. I pulled off my jacket and undid my tie because I was sweating like I'd run a marathon on a hot day. I tried asking for my money back, and then I demanded it and screamed for it, but words hadn't worked. I needed more than words. I needed the court system to help me out, but the 2 lawyers I had consulted couldn't help me. You created this mess all on your own. You should have read the fine print. You messed up, and you're going to have to fix it yourself. That's what I said to myself, and when I realized that I was all alone, that I had no one to turn to, my brain started to work once more. I went to our firm's small library and found Baldwin on banking, but after almost an hour I gave up because Baldwin was missing a chapter on what to do after someone rips you off. So I tried the book on injunctions next, but that was useless. To get a court order to freeze a bank account, you needed a judge, and I couldn't get in front of a judge for a week. So I dithered in the library for another hour, looking at this, flipping through that, and then I retreated to my office. I was panicking again, really panicking now. I had painted myself into a corner and burned all of my bridges. My law degree and a decade of practice was useless, and I had no way to fight back against Edward Lee Shore. If I hadn't panicked, if I had remained calm, I would have hired a lawyer to do the Mariva thing. And unwarned, Edward Lee Shore would have been a sitting duck. I'd blown the only thing I had going for me, the advantage of surprise. I get this nightmare sometimes, one that a lot of people get. Maybe you know the one I'm talking about, where you're back in school and you have an exam coming up and you haven't studied, you aren't prepared, you don't have time to catch up, but there's a 100% final the next day and you have one night to learn an entire course. In my dreams, I always woke up before I actually had to write that nightmare final exam, but this time it was real. I had maybe a day at most to do something, and after that, I would be finished. I picked up the phone and called my wife. "I'm teaching," she said. "You shouldn't call when I'm teaching." She was whispering, and in the background, I could hear rowdy teenagers doing their thing. "I'm pulling an all-nighter," I said. "What?" I promised that I'd tell her all about it, then I hung up. Then I went online and started to research. It was time to start studying for tomorrow's final, a 100% final, where you either scored perfect or you failed. I'd either find a way to stop Edward Lee Shore, or I'd go back home to tell my wife that I'd lost everything we had saved. By midnight, I was starting to get punchy. I had had more coffee than ever before. I was slouched over my desk, trying to find new sources, a new idea. I flipped through Baldwin on banking again and the Canadian Encyclopedic Digest. I tried every combination of search terms I could think of on Quick Law, pulled up every case, scanned every headnote, but I'd found nothing. A little after midnight, my nightmare entered the truly desperate phase. With the textbooks and case law and all secondary sources proving totally useless, I had reached my last resort. I was reading statutes. In my area of practice, federal statutes aren't really a thing. I practice in areas under provincial jurisdiction, whereas banks are federally regulated. But in my desperation, I thought I'd try reading the Bank Act. Maybe I'd find something there. So I clicked on a link and waited for the Bank Act PDF to download. "Hurry up," I told our server when the statute took too long to appear on the screen. But I soon realized that the server wasn't the problem, it was the statute itself. When the Bank Act finally finished downloading, I saw that it was massive, almost 1,000 sections, and many of those sections were themselves big enough to be entire statutes all on their own. I had never seen a statute that big. "Gotta start somewhere," I said, as my eyes scanned the opening sections, and I started to read. I read and I read and I read some more, and I drank coffee and made notes. Earlier that evening, I'd spoken with my wife and traded some texts with her. She had asked me to come home, saying that whatever it was I was working on, it wouldn't look so bad if I got a good night's sleep. And while normally she would be right, this time she was wrong. So I kept on reading and mouse clicking and note-taking and coffee drinking. And by 2 a.m., I was barely halfway through the Bank Act when I paused. I was reading an obscure Bank Act provision about unclaimed balances, but my brain couldn't focus. I was starting to fade out now because it's not so easy to pull an all-nighter when you're pushing 40. All-nighters are for kids, and I wasn't a kid. But there was at least a small part of my brain that was still awake, still paying attention, and it gave me a little poke, and told me to reread the paragraph that I'd blown past a minute before. I went back and read the provision again and again. The wording was obscure and convoluted. It hardly made any sense at all. I read the clause again and again, its words strange and almost cryptic. The words seemed to be creating a right, but doing it not with positive words, but instead using language of negation. No wonder I'd missed it the first time. The clause was terribly drafted. Really, my law brain said, if I were drafting that clause, I'd just say straight out that. And then I jumped out of my seat and whooped. The office was empty. Not even articling students work until 2 in the morning. I whooped again, but then told myself to calm down. I reminded myself that it was early morning, that I'd had no sleep, that I had no idea what I was doing, and that I was desperate. So I did a search on the Bank Act provision that I had hoped was my salvation to see if the wording had ever been cited. Surely if someone had used it before for what I wanted to use it, I'd find cases all over the place. I cut and pasted the statute section into Quick Law, I pressed enter, and nothing. Not a thing. The phrase had never been considered by a judge. There was no record of anyone interpreting the section of the Bank Act that I was hoping would save me, and my burst of enthusiasm disappeared. The brief instant of hope had energized me, and when hope faded, my remaining energy faded with it. Got no choice, I said to myself as I pulled up a document and started typing. You've already lost all your money. Might as well embarrass yourself as well. So I typed and I drafted and deleted and retyped, and when I finished, there was a statement of claim on my screen, the opening salvo of a lawsuit. It wasn't much, but it was the best I could do. I got some sleep on the couch in my office, and I didn't wake up until almost 8:30. I ran downstairs to the building's gym for a quick shower. I tried to make myself look decent, but I was in a rush. I needed to get my claim issued right at 9:30 if I was going to have a chance. But when I got there, a long line of process servers awaited me. Is it always like this? I said to our firm's process server. He was 20 places back in line. You have no idea, he said. He told me to leave it with him and he'd probably get it issued by the end of the day, but I wasn't waiting. I walked to the front of the line and opened my wallet. I got a claim that I need issued right now, and I'm paying extra to jump the line. First one who says they'll help gets a bonus. I started pulling bills from my wallet in full view of the people near the front of the line. I held a wad of bills over my head, waving them, and the process server at the front of the line said, I'll do it. When the court opened a few minutes later, my claim got issued first. It had cost me close to $200, but I didn't care. I took my issued claim and headed off at a run. I had to get to main branch of Megabank. Every second counted, and a few minutes later I arrived. By now it was 9:45, and many of the counters were open. There were already long lines, and I half walked, half ran through the branch, looking for a counter with no lineup. But everything was busy. Everything was packed, and time was running out. What's wrong, OP? My former advisor called out to me from her desk. She was serving a customer, but she could see the distress on my face and took pity on me. I got a document I have to serve on right away, I said. And when I said those words, the advisor's customer turned around and looked at me. It was Edward Lee Shore of Lee Shore Investments himself. He had a briefcase with him and a suitcase. I brushed past him and gave the claim I was carrying to the advisor. I knew that I was probably wasting my time. Seeing Shore had put me back into full panic mode. He was on his way out, that much was obvious. I'd given him a day's notice, and that's all he needed. I figured he had locked his office door for the last time and was making a final trip to Megabank to cash out, to take all his money with him. But I had a card to play, and maybe it was just a bluff, but I was going to play it anyway. I passed the claim to the advisor. I was here first, Edward Lee Shore said, but I ignored him. I'm serving the bank with this claim, I said, and I'm claiming ownership of some funds on deposit. I had sued Edward Lee Shore and his company, Lee Shore Investments, and all the lawsuit said was that I was claiming ownership of money in his accounts. The claim had taken me hours to draft, but it was only 2 pages long. Give me my money, the claim said. Give me my money. I want my money. A ridiculous claim, really, and I felt embarrassed, but when I passed the papers to the advisor, she took them from me and began to read them over. I watched the advisor read over my paperwork. I'll be back, she said. I thought Shore would be angry that she had taken me ahead of him, but he wasn't. Nor did he become angry when I gave him another copy of the claim and told him he was served. You're too late, he said. You can't do anything without a court order. You're a lawyer, you should know that. When she comes back, she's going to tell you to go away, and you know what she'll do next? She's going to send a wire pursuant to my instructions. All your stunt has done is delay me 5 minutes. Shore did not try to hide his gloating smile of triumph. The advisor returned. "Done," she said.
What?
I said.
Done what?
Shore said. "We get claims like this now and again. I had to check with the assistant manager, but that's just protocol. It's done now."
What's done?
I said again, trying not to scream, desperate to know what it was she had done. "I froze the accounts," she said.
All my accounts?
I said.
All 5?
She shook her head and my heart sank, and Shore smiled. But at the advisor's next words, his smile froze on his face. "No, it doesn't work that way," she said. "I can't freeze money in an account. We have to freeze all the accounts, everything." Shore looked at her, stunned. Then he turned to me.
You can't freeze an account without a court order. You just can't.
Now it was my turn to smile, and I said the words that I'd wanted to say since I first read them at 2 a.m. that morning. The words that I said were the most beautiful words I've ever spoken in my life. It's the only time I said them, but I will never forget these words. "Your accounts are all frozen pursuant to subsection 432 sub 2 of the Bank Act," I said. "Your accounts, all of them, are frozen by operation law. I froze the accounts automatically without a court order, and they will remain frozen until you get a court order to unfreeze them."
But there must be another way,
Shore said. "Yes," the advisor said. "If the plaintiff consents, you can still operate your accounts, but only if the plaintiff consents." Shore turned to me.
We have to talk,
he said. "Come to my office," I told him. We didn't talk for long. It was easy to reach a deal, and we were both in a hurry. He had a wire to send and a plane to catch, and I wanted my money on the spot. We typed up a letter to the bank, a letter of instructions. We both signed it, and we went back downstairs to the same counter and waited in a short line for the advisor. I was feeling pretty good now. I'd solved the problem. Everything was settled. Shore, on the other hand, was sweating now. Sometimes his face was red, other times a sickly white. He had all his chips on the table now, and he needed to cash out fast.
Come on,
he muttered as a customer in front of us yacked away with the advisor, taking up valuable time. Finally, the customer went on her way, and it was our turn. I presented the letter to the advisor, the letter that Shore and I had signed. The advisor took the letter from us and gave it a good and careful read. "I'll be back," she said, leaving Shore and I standing together at her counter. We watched as she went into the assistant manager's office, and when she didn't come out right away, Shore started fidgeting again. "Why did you do it?" I said.
Do what?
He said, snapping out of his funk and turning to me. "Why did you steal from people?" He explained that it was not stealing. People gave him their money voluntarily. He stole nothing. People came to him with their eyes wide open, he explained, and it wasn't his fault if they were gullible. The world was made for sharp guys like him. "But you can't be that smart," I said. "After all, I caught you, and now you're taking off, running to who knows where, before other people can catch on to you."
I've been doing this for 30 years, and no one's caught me. You just got lucky. You're not smart, just lucky.
The advisor returned. "For a draft this size, it needs 2 signatures," she explained. She passed me an envelope, and when I looked inside it, I almost cried. It was not a mere check, but a bank draft, good as cash, drawn on Megabank. It was my life savings, plus the premium I'd made Edward Lee Shore pay me, compensation for my time and my stress, and the financial near-death experience he put me through. "Thanks," I said. Then I handed the draft back to her and told her to reopen all of my accounts, just like it was before. Before I almost lost everything else. The advisor took the draft and turned to go, but Shore stopped her.
What about my accounts? My wire? You saw the letter we both signed. You have the consent you need.
The advisor smiled and said, "Yes, of course," but then I stopped her. "You won't be sending any wires today," I told Shore.
But you agreed, he said. It's in the letter. I saw it with my own eyes. You wrote it and signed it, and I signed it. We both consented.
"I'm not so sure that's what the letter says," I said. Shore reached out to snatch the letter from the advisor's desk, but she pulled it back out of reach. I didn't need to see the letter. I remembered it perfectly. It was full of lawyer flourishes and recitals, filled with wherefores and aforesaids and heretofores, with the occasional Latin phrase tossed in. When it came to what I wanted, it was perfectly clear, instructing Megabank to give me my money in a bank draft. All this I repeated, including the letter's final words, that once I had my money back, therefore the accounts of Lee Shore Investments may operate freely as before. That's what it said.
So there's no freeze. I want my money. I want to send a wire.
But I was in a rush when I drafted that letter, I said, and I'm not sure it has the desired legal effect. I think the bank needs to get a second opinion. The advisor thought so too, and so did the assistant branch manager when Shore started yelling. and when the branch manager herself arrived on the scene, she told Shore to leave and she'd get back to him once the bank's legal department had given an opinion. "I'm not leaving until I get my money," Shore said, and then shouted. I turned and walked away, leaving him raving at the counter. "Our money is back with Megabank," I said to my wife when I got home that evening. "That was your all-nighter?" I explained what had happened, how I'd messed up, and how I'd fixed it. She picked up her coat and said I was taking her out to dinner. The waiter sat us down, and I opened the menu. My wife snatched it out of my hand. "You're done with investing, okay? Done with the principal-protected notes and ROI and all that stuff." I nodded my head agreeably and explained that next time I'd research things way more carefully, that I'd never make a mistake like this again. My wife shook her head. "I wasn't asking," she said. "I was telling. I'm telling you that you're done with investing. The money stays in Megabank in an index fund." My wife meant it too. Ever since then, when I bring my monthly draw home, she dumps the surplus into that super boring index fund at Megabank, where it's safe from the Edward Lee Shores of the world and the dummies like me who fall for people like him. I hired a babysitter so I can go golfing twice a month. My wife isn't happy about it. My wife, who's 39, and I, 41 male, have been married for 12 years and we have 3 kids, who are 10, 7, and 4. I got in on the ground floor of a startup about 20 years ago, and the business has since grown exponentially. I'm now in an executive level position. My wife works in retail. About 18 months ago, my wife was offered a promotion that would include a relatively small bump in pay, but would require her to start working weekends, something she was able to avoid previously. They also dangled a carrot in front of her in the form of this promotion, leading to a bigger and better promotion. She was very excited about the opportunity when she told me about it, but I expressed some concern about her having to work weekends. She would have to work 5 to 6 weekend shifts every month, so pretty much 3/4 of the weekends every month. I told her that's asking a lot of her when the bump in pay isn't that much, especially when we don't particularly need the extra money. But she was so excited to advance her career that she disregarded my concerns and accepted the position. Since she started the new position, I've told her many times how I'm feeling stressed and burnt out by not really having breaks during the week. I work a stressful job 5 days a week, and then I have to go into solo parent mode almost every weekend. On the weeks my wife works weekends, she gets 2 days off during the week pretty much all to herself, especially during the school year. Yes, she uses this time to run errands and do things around the house, but she also uses it to meet up with friends and do things for herself. I don't have free time to do similar things for myself. My weekends are filled with activities for the kids. The one weekend a month my wife doesn't work is allocated as family time at the request of her. Whenever I brought this up to her, she would tell me that her position is temporary until she gets another promotion, but that hasn't happened yet. This summer, I started hiring a teenage babysitter in our neighborhood to watch our kids for a few hours twice a month on Saturday so that I can go golfing with my friends. It's done wonders for my stress level, and the social interaction greatly improves my mood. The kids look forward to it as well because they like the babysitter. When I first told my wife about this, she was upset because not only am I spending money on a babysitter just for myself, I'm also spending money on golf, which pretty much cancels out the money she makes that day or even more. When I told her how much better I feel having time for myself, she tells me that I should do that in a way that isn't so expensive. The last time she brought this up, I reminded her that even after her promotion, I still make over 2 times what she does, and that her bosses probably lied to her about another promotion because no one else would take the position that she did. She got mad at me for insulting her career and for spending hundreds of dollars every month just on myself. Not the jerk. You need a break. Mental health is important. If it doesn't hurt your family's financial situation, it's money well spent. Am I the jerk for not sharing my lottery winnings with my girlfriend? After winning the lottery, I was excited about the possibilities it could bring to my life. However, when I shared the news with my girlfriend, she immediately started pressuring me to give her a substantial amount of the winnings. She argued that we had been together for a significant amount of time and that she had supported me throughout our relationship. I explained to her that the money was a personal windfall and that I had plans for it, such as investing in my future and taking care of my family. I also mentioned that we had never discussed sharing finances or making joint decisions about money before. Despite my explanations, my girlfriend became increasingly angry and accused me of being selfish and greedy. She claimed that I was prioritizing money over our relationship and that I should be willing to share my newfound wealth with her. Feeling overwhelmed and hurt by her demands, I decided to end the relationship. I believe that her insistence on me giving her the money was unfair and showed a lack of understanding and respect for my boundaries. Now I'm questioning whether I made the right decision and if I'm the jerk in this situation. Info: I won $200,000 from the lottery. She demanded at least $150,000. When you say supported, how did she support you? We've never had to financially support each other or anything, so you could say moral support. And I live in Canada if that helps. Did you buy the ticket together in some way? If so, I would personally share it with her, depending on how your economy is set up. Not saying 50-50, it totally depends on how your economy is run. You kind of give little information, and the dating for 2 years feels vague. Not saying that you're hiding something, it's just not a lot of information. You say nothing about how you came into possession of the ticket. My question is, did she indeed support you the majority of your relationship? If so, yeah, you kind of owe her a thank you amount. But it sounds like you're okay with not being responsible for yourself to begin with, since she was taking care of you at all to begin with. Do you live with her? She may be entitled as common law. I can't tell you what to do, but if my boyfriend literally won $200,000 and never had to work again a day in his life and expected to not share some of that with me, I would be gone. That would be a huge red flag showing me how greedy he is and unwilling to share. What does one person even need that much money at one time for? Ah, Reddit. The only place you'll find people who think you can retire and never have to work again after winning $200K in the lottery, which would be far less than that after taxes. Well, I mean, maybe you could retire if you want to live under a bridge or something. Some of these people just don't have a very good understanding of finances. Well, why should they? Mommy's the one who's supposed to pay for their weddings, right? Not again, Reddit boy. Am I the jerk for telling my aunt to keep her gifts since my kids couldn't care less about them? I have 2 toddler sons. They're just like any other toddlers and are pretty self-absorbed. Currently, one adores cars and the other loves the color red. Toddler 1 won't play with anything but cars, and Toddler 2 will only play with red toys. My mom hosted a party the other night and one of my aunts came. She bought a bunch of gifts for all the kids. The older kids were respectful and accepted their gifts, but my sons simply glanced at the toys, noticed they weren't cars or red, and moved on to something else. I thanked her for the toys and made a joke about how unpredictable toddlers are after realizing she looked upset, but she rolled her eyes and said, "That was rude." I told her they're toddlers, and she said, "So? My kids knew how to say thank you by the time they were 3. I told her they can say please and thank you, but they're still learning. She made a noise and said, "Learning to be rude?" I told her she was being a little insensitive and that they're literally babies. They don't even understand the concepts of being rude and ungrateful. She got annoyed and said, "Fine then, don't expect any more presents after today," and that she hated entitled parents like me who are blinded by their kids and think that they can do no wrong. I said, "Whatever," and told her that she could keep the gift. Gifts she bought for today since my kids couldn't care less about them. She got all red in the face and said now she knows why the boys are so rude, but I just grabbed the kids and my husband and left. I was extremely angry at the moment, but now I'm just in disbelief. Who gets offended by a toddler? My mom says my aunt is very upset with me and is threatening to uninvite us from her Christmas dinner. Aunt is hosting this year, unless I apologize and promise to raise my kids better. My mom thinks we're being ridiculous and I should just say sorry, but I said no. Am I the jerk? I just can't wrap my head around why she's so angry. Edit. First, to be more specific, the boys just turned 2. Second, I feel I made this clear, but I apologized and thanked my aunt before anything else. The boys had already run off to their dad and were preoccupied with him by the time I got to my aunt, so dragging them over and trying to maybe get a thank you out of them felt like a waste of time for all of us. I'm not saying she isn't allowed to feel hurt, but she didn't have to say all those things about my kids. I've explained this in the comments. People still think I'm in the wrong, but a few people are saying to include it anyways. The boys don't really speak. Yes, they're 2, and I'm sure your 2-year-old niece or nephew can speak several languages, but my sons barely say mommy and daddy sometimes. It's not something concerning, but I didn't think it was worth the time to drag my kids back to me and my aunt and get them to say thank you, which they won't even acknowledge me until about 10 minutes in, and they'll just stare. Sometimes I can get a noise or a sound out of them, maybe an ooh, but I figured my aunt had better things to do than wait that long. I sincerely believe that there was no reason for her to get so angry, but I understand that I was wrong and will apologize. We won't be attending her Christmas party though. She's not offended by your toddlers. She's offended by your behavior in response to your toddlers. Did you not get that? Her entire point was that when your kids are rude, it's your job as their parent to guide the right response, and you didn't do that here. Everyone sucks here because you both overreacted. You're the jerk. I don't think it's so much that she was offended by them, but by you straight up allowing them to be rude in her home and doing absolutely nothing about it, and instead, you made up excuses. As a parent, you should be trying to correct that behavior now so it doesn't persist as they grow up. How hard would it have been to say thank you to your grandma for the presents, or something along those lines? What do we say? Would have worked also. I could go on. Say you're sorry. Everyone sucks here. They are indeed learning to be rude. It's okay if they forget, but it's your job to remind them. On the other hand, she's also severely overreacting, but she's initially not wrong. Edit. To everyone answering that your 2-year-olds can't say thank you, it doesn't have to be the exact words, but any kind of reaction like a hug or something, not just letting them run away to their dad like nothing happened. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her aunt? Please let us know.
You know, it would have been hilarious if the 2-year-old took the toy from the aunt, looked her right in the eye, and said,
"Thanks, Aunt Molly. I really appreciate the gifts." Whoa, Karen, I didn't know you could talk like that.
"There's a lot of things I can do that you don't know about, Reddit boy."
Am I the jerk for telling my kids that if they don't come to my wedding, I will not be attending theirs? I'll start at the beginning. My ex-husband was a good father, but a terrible husband. I divorced him when my oldest was 14 and my youngest was 10. Well, he ended up spiraling, and the kids were exposed to that. I was blamed for ruining their dad. He got better after a few years, but ended up doing it again when he learned I was dating. So the kids kept trying to get me to not date since it would affect their dad. It was an awful time since to the kids, I was still responsible for what he did and how he reacted to things. In the end, I just kept my dating on the low end, which wasn't hard since it wasn't introducing the kids to the guys I was dating. All I had to change was not posting on social media. Also, yes, I sent the kids to therapy. They all stopped when they turned 18, or my middle kid refused to talk, so I pulled him. My oldest is now 25, and my youngest is 21, and I got proposed to. I set them down and told them. They were not happy and were still upset that I was doing this to their dad. Lots of talks later, and I thought it was good. The wedding is in 2 weeks. I got a text from all the kids saying they will not be at my wedding, that they need to support dad during this time. I had enough and texted them that if they don't come to my wedding, it will damage our relationship and I will not be attending their own weddings when they get married. They were upset and it started an argument, and all of them think I'm a huge jerk. I truly hate that I can't do anything that makes me happy since it will affect my ex. Update. I realized that I'm okay letting them go. I can't do it anymore. I sent a text, it's up to them if they want to go or not. If they do, I have hope to fix this relationship. If not, I'm just done. I can't keep playing this game. It's for everything. Anytime I have something good, his feelings have to come first. I can't do that anymore. It hurts too much. I could tell them everything he has done, but I don't feel like blowing up their image of him. Update 2. Someone private messaging me convinced me to lay it all out for them, so I did. Well, I got my response. They called me a liar. Even with showing old screenshots that were in our divorce case. I think it's over. Thanks for everyone that tried to help. I know this was a no-win situation. Not the jerk. They're adults now, and they should realize that you are under no obligation to stay single to appease your ex. They are not the only people who have had parents divorce, and yet it seems like they can't get over it. And if after all this time your ex is still emotionally impacted by your personal life, then he needs to get on with his life and get help, because it's not healthy. Also, assuming that they want you to go to their weddings in the future, are they expecting you to go solo and not bring your husband? Not the jerk. You're allowed to move on. You don't need to put your personal life on hold just because it doesn't sit well with your ex. Your kids need to be supportive of both their parents. They're no longer bratty teenagers, they're adults now. On the other hand, some info is missing. How is your relationship with your kids? Do they live with you after the divorce? When it comes to the ultimatum, I still don't think you're a jerk, but the approach might not work. It may have been more effective to communicate how hurt you felt and why, including understanding in detail why they are so against you dating anyone and not being supportive of you. But now if they come, you would not feel good about it, as you may feel that you forced them to. I would say though that it seems your kids have way bigger issues with you getting married to someone else than just your ex, since it's a big step to decide not to come to your wedding. So try digging deeper and understanding what it is. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her kids? Please let us know.
Those kids sound like they have more issues than People magazine. And how long has our ex been crying about this now? Dude, that guy needs to get some hobbies or something. Never allow yourself to remain a prisoner to the past. Our thoughts and actions in the present is what shapes our future.
Wow, Karen, you can say some pretty insightful things sometimes.
What, you thought I was just a pretty face?
I just found out that 4 of my 5 kids are not mine. My wife won't say anything about it. My world has been turned upside down over the last couple of weeks. I met my wife when we were in high school and we married in college. We have 5 beautiful kids together. Really, I consider them a total blessing regardless of what I'm about to bring up. And up until a couple of weeks ago, I thought that we had the perfect marriage. We were the typical high school sweethearts. We go out together. We never fight. I feel like I've done everything a loving husband should do. I'm saying this not to make myself out as the perfect husband. For example, my work has always meant I work long hours and maybe haven't always been there when she needed me. But I want to stress that I've never felt our marriage was in any trouble, and never in a million years would I ever have suspected my wife of being disloyal. She's always done everything she could to support me and to take care of our kids. Now, my eldest daughter recently had an ancestry test done, and the results of the ancestry test strongly suggested I was not her father. She confided this to me privately, showing me the results, and I could tell she was visibly upset by this. Of course, the first thing I did was reassure her that no matter what, she's my daughter, and I'll always love her unconditionally. But secondly, the 2 of us decided to get an official paternity test since the ancestry tests are not completely reliable. It comes back I am indeed not her biological father. This news really broke me. I'm ashamed to say I broke down in tears in front of my daughter. The combination of finding out about my wife's infidelity and how upset I was making my daughter by how I was reacting. I really wish I had kept it in for her sake, but I didn't. Following this, I asked my other kids, except my youngest, to come and see me. I wanted to know the extent of my wife's infidelity. If it was a one-off, I could maybe work past it, especially given with how long ago it was. However, I didn't want to tell my youngest as she is still in school, a teenager, and I really didn't think it was appropriate to tell her yet. We tell the other 3 what has happened. I reassure them that I love them unconditionally and that I'll always be their dad, but that I need to know how long this has been going on. I can't begin to explain how touching their reaction was. They didn't care I wasn't their biological father. They were just upset at how heartbroken I was. I feel like the only thing that has kept me going these last couple of weeks is their unwavering support. So we have paternity tests for each of the 3 done. Not only are none of them my biological kids, but 4 of my kids have 3 different fathers, which somehow made it worse. It's like she wasn't just having an ongoing affair, she was having multiple. I can't explain how this makes it worse, but it just does. So I confront my wife with this, expecting her to confess and beg for forgiveness. She doesn't confess. She doesn't even take it seriously. She says the tests must be flawed. All 4? How am I supposed to take that seriously? I keep bringing it up and she keeps brushing it off, getting progressively more annoyed at me. When I bring it up, she'll try and guilt trip me. We've been together since high school. Do you seriously not trust me? Etc. But how am I supposed to trust her in the face of such overwhelming evidence? Now that I've rambled and explained what has happened, I guess let me ask a few direct questions for advice. How can I reassure my kids this doesn't change anything between us? I feel like the way I have reacted, total breakdowns, have made them second guess this, despite however many times I reassure them. How do I handle my youngest daughter? I feel like our marriage is beyond saving, and I'll need to tell my daughter something. I don't want her to know the truth until she's older, but I also don't want my wife lying and making me out to be the bad guy. Is there any way at all, anything I can do to save my marriage? I've been with my wife my entire life. It's almost impossible to see a life without her. I know that the answer should be a clear, leave her, but we have 5 kids together. If there's anything that can be done to save our marriage, I want to consider it seriously.
Well, hey, at least OP didn't ask for a paternity test back when his wife was pregnant, because according to Reddit, nobody ever has the right to ask for that.
Yeah, remember the story where the guy had been told by multiple specialists he was infertile, and then his wife got pregnant, so he wanted a paternity test and Reddit just went crazy on him?
Oh, I remember that one, Reddit boy, but I wish I didn't.
Am I the jerk for calling out my dog sitter for doubling her charge 4 days before our flight? My husband, 33 male, and I, 35 female, have 2 small dogs, Pip, who's 5, and Skip, who's 17. We both work and live below our means, and this allowed us to purchase a home and have some savings.
We enjoy travel with the strategic use of miles, promos, and reciprocal travel friendships. I budget carefully and pre-plan everything so we have enough to live, enough to save, and enough to enjoy our lives. Aside from our regular jobs, we also watch dogs on the side. We usually do so below market rate because we understand how inflated dog sitting fees have become. We usually pet sit for around $30 per dog per day. Sometimes we even dog sit for free if they're a friend or a family member, or if it's financially tight for some of our regular clients. We love animals and we're very understanding of other people's means. This has built us a small network of people we could rely on to watch our pets until recently. A couple of our friends moved away and some have become too busy. We started using a friend of my sister-in-law named Betty. She has been charging us $30 a day for Pip and $35 a day for Skip. She stays at our house and sat for us with no issues at that rate 2 times prior. In September, I informed her that we were taking a longer trip to visit my husband's aunt for Thanksgiving as she has cancer. We told her it would just be Skip. After doing the math, it made sense to pay the fees and fly with Pip. She agreed. A few weeks before our trip, the sitter says she cannot watch Skip on Thanksgiving and Black Friday because our mom booked a cabin for them that didn't allow pets. So we scrambled to find someone to take Pip for those days. Although he does not have major medical issues and takes no meds, he is deaf, blind, has doggy dementia, and is incontinent. The incontinent part usually puts people off taking him, so we were very anxious. But after some time, we found a sitter willing to take him those days, and Betty agreed to pick him up for the remainder of the days. Then, 4 days before we leave for our trip, Betty says she will keep her rate at $65 per day because she will be traveling from the cabin, then picking up Skip. I called her out on this because we only needed to get an additional sitter because of the changes in her plans. For reference, the other dog sitter was going to charge us $50 a day. I would have booked her for the whole thing, but Betty said she would charge us just an additional day for the pickup. My husband and I both assumed it would still be at our regular rate because she had not informed us otherwise over the 3 months we had planned this. I told her it was not cool that she's doubling our rate right before we're about to fly. I didn't tell her I wasn't going to pay the extra rate. I asked for a compromise and for her to be more upfront of any extra charges in the future. Betty then grew very uncomfortable with our interaction and basically backed out of watching him entirely. Thankfully, the second sitter was free to watch him the days that she bailed on. Am I the jerk? Also, while I appreciate your concerns about Skip's impending demise, he's actually still doing okay. He has no tumors, no cancer, etc. Sometimes we take him on small walks where he drools at all the scents. He has a very healthy appetite and loves his favorite foods. He loves to snuggle when we watch TV and always loves to be in his special spot in the middle of the bed at night. You're the jerk. I feel like the core of this is a misunderstanding. She was paid $65 a day to dog sit. I understand it was split between 2 dogs, but that doesn't mean that one dog only is worth about half the price, especially when that dog is deaf, blind, incontinent, and demented. But you are the jerk for thinking that $35 is a reasonable daily rate to pay for that and pushing back. That's a massive burden and a ton of work, and I think you should be happy to throw any money at it you need to. Not the jerk, because she committed to watch him and did not tell you that her fee had almost doubled. Then she ditched you for part of the trip and you had to find an alternative so late in the game. Lesson learned though, I would not trust her again. Am I the jerk for telling my half-sister that I will never be walked down the aisle by our mom's affair partner? I, 27 female, have a half-sister who's 25. We share the same mom, but she cheated on my dad while they were married, and my half-sister is the result of that. Mom ended up marrying her dad after the affair was revealed and DNA was established. Apparently, he wouldn't have married Mom if my half-sister hadn't been his. My parents shared custody of me until I was just about to turn 8, literally 2 weeks before my birthday, and then my dad passed in an accident. I was at school and it was his parenting time with me, so I saw him that day. It really destroyed me. I ended up living with my mom, obviously. I always knew about the tension between my parents and my dad and my mom's husband. I always knew about the affair because my aunt, Mom's sister, was very open about it, and she would use every opportunity to call my mom and her husband out. My mom is still married to my half-sister's dad. He tried to be a dad to me. I do think he loves me. He claims me as his other daughter, all that stuff. But I still see him as not my dad, and as the person who hooked up with my mom and got her pregnant while she was married to my dad. He does not get the fatherly role in my life now. Whenever I see him and my mom, I'm civil. but we are not close. My relationship with my half-sister isn't that close either, but I know none of this is her fault, so I try to have a sibling relationship with her. After I got engaged, she told me she couldn't wait to see our dad walk me down the aisle. That's when I told her it would never happen, and when she said it should, because he has been there longer than my dad ever was, I told her it didn't matter to me, because I would never be walked down the aisle by my mom's affair partner. She told me that was 26 years ago, and I said, yeah, it was, and I don't remember it happening, but he does not get rewarded, and I'm not disrespecting my dad's memory like that. She told me I shouldn't be acting like this, and what do I think of her when I hate her parents, and especially her dad, that much? She told me I should appreciate him more for trying to be a good dad to me, and I always rejected him and treated him like crap. Am I the jerk? I know this is about your conversation with your sister, but have you informed your mother or your sister's father? I don't see stepdad anywhere, so I'm taking it that you don't call him that either. That he will not be walking you down the aisle? Will they be invited to the wedding? Not the jerk. Choose who you want to walk you down the aisle. Put a picture up of your biological father for remembrance if you like. OP. They won't be invited, and I have not told them. But I really have nothing to do with them now, so I expect they'll figure it out. They need to know if they aren't invited. They might assume that they are, and that they don't need to receive an official invitation. Maybe in their eyes, as your parents, they are absolutely coming. I know you don't see him as a parent, but in their minds, they probably think that. Send them a registered letter if you don't want to tell them face-to-face, or an email with a red receipt. People that have zero relationship with the bride, even if it's the mother and stepfather, do not need any heads up. They don't deserve the courtesy. Well, it's not necessarily out of courtesy. It's more so they don't show up and risk causing a scene. Maybe OP should consider bouncers. Not the jerk for your decision about the wedding. You could have been a little less rude to your sister though. None of this is her fault either. Your resentment for your stepfather seems unhealthy, so you might want to reflect on that. Not as in add him to your wedding party, but as in creating the best mental health for yourself as you can. Best of luck to you. I hope your wedding is amazing and you can find a way to honor your dad during the ceremony. Goodness, I hope your sister cuts you off after this. Leave that family to be happy in peace. You have zero concept of what happened between your parents when you were a baby. Your information is coming from the completely biased source of mom's sister. And even if your dad was the saint you seem to think he was, you're throwing away a family that loves you because your mom made a mistake 25 years ago. That family deserves better than you. Grow up. Am I the jerk for selling my late grandparents' ranch, even though they asked me not to? Long story short, my grandparents used to live on this ranch for almost 60 years, and both of them passed away on this property. My mother was raised there, and so were my siblings and I, so there's quite a lot of sentimental value to the house. There's also a lot of monetary value to the property. The problem is the upkeep, especially as a single 28-year-old with a moderate paid job, which is what I told my grandfather years ago when he told me he wanted the house to be my inheritance to raise my own family like he did his. It became a running thing with him telling me I needed to get comfortable with the house for when it's mine, me saying I'd just sell it, and him arguing with me about that. He sadly passed early last year, quite suddenly and true to his word, left me the house among other assets. I decided I'd try to make the old man happy and accepted the responsibility. For the past year, I've been trying to make everything work with fluctuating success, but ultimately the house is somewhat of a sinkhole. On top of that, I've been headhunted for a job across the country with potential to move overseas within the next year. After long internal deliberations, I decided to just sell the house. When I told my sister, she lost it. She says I'm disrespecting the old man's wishes by selling it to a stranger and should rather let her and her husband have it. I told her she could have it immediately as long as she could pay the market value for the house. She thinks it's unfair to ask for money for a house I got for free and offer to stay in it, and in return, she'll upkeep it herself. I was planning on using the money from the sale for a place when I move, though, so that also wouldn't work out. There's a lot of tension now, and she's even trying to rally family members against me. I get the old man wouldn't be happy with this if he were alive, but frankly and lovingly, he isn't, and I shouldn't burden myself, right? Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. I'm not the biggest fan of venerating the wishes of the dead when it's counter to your own well-being. I think it's nice that you tried, but your grandpa was under no illusions about your feelings on keeping the ranch and the property. Definitely check for hidden treasure, cursed gold, or buried bodies before you sell. Edit to say that with the added context from OP, I think selling it to sister for fair market value is crappy. Sure, she should pay something,
at least to recoup your cost for maintaining it, assuming that also didn't come from your disproportionate inheritance, but you're drifting into jerk territory for me. You're the jerk. You get a free house that grandpa wanted to stay in the family and decide your sister should pay market value? I don't see how you could be anything other than the jerk. Not saying she should get it for free, but market value for a free house? If you do this, expect it to forever impact on how the rest of the family sees you for the rest of your life. I am 100% venting here and taking it out on you, but I get perpetually angry at how it seems like the only way people in my age range can afford a house is if they get a massive inheritance. So while you are basically set for life, not having to pay a full mortgage ever again after the money you just accumulated out of nowhere, I'll be scraping by just to try and make a down payment on a house. You better not be one of those people in 5 to 10 years trying to give people advice on what made you successful without mentioning that you got a house for free and then pocketed all the money from selling it in order to buy your next house. The fact that you are so greedy and would only give it to your sister for market rate when she probably should have had 50% of that inheritance to begin with is incredibly crappy. You're the jerk. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his sister? Please let us know.
Seriously, dude, give the house to your sister and let her and her family appreciate it.
My daughter wants me to pay for her expensive college tuition for a career that doesn't even pay anything. I'm 49, male, and I have 2 kids, Jake, who's 23, and Nikki, who's 17. Their mother and I are divorced. I have full custody, and she sends no support. Both of my kids are good kids and good students with good grades. Jake got into his dream school, but didn't get any scholarships. His undergrad school is one of the best schools in our part of the country, and it's expensive. I didn't want him to take out loans and have to carry debt, so I'm paying for his tuition and living expenses. The total cost is roughly $50,000 a year. He's following in our family tradition and is pursuing a career in dentistry. I'm not a dentist, but we have about a dozen dentists and oral surgeons in our family. I will also be paying for his dentistry degree. While I know it will be costly, I view this as a good investment, as he'll have a starting salary of about $120,000 as a dentist in our area. If he decides to become an oral surgeon, his starting salary will almost double that figure. Nikki is a senior in high school. Like her brother, she's a good student and will have a good chance of getting into her dream school, but she has a low chance of getting any scholarships. Her dream school is also a very good one, located in the middle of a very expensive city. Tuition and living expenses will be roughly $75,000 a year. The problem is that she's dreamt of being a teacher since she was little, and she's made it clear that she will be an education major because she wants to be a middle school teacher. The other problem is that the salary for middle school teachers in our area is $48,000 to $60,000 a year. I fully realize that she can move and work elsewhere, but I can't imagine there are many middle school teachers in the US making 6 figures. I don't view paying $300,000 plus for a career that tops out at $60,000 a year as a wise investment. I told my daughter that the state school that's 2 hours away has a good education program, and her in-state tuition and living expenses will only be about $20,000 a year. I view paying $80,000 for a teaching degree as a much better investment. I've tried discussing the matter with Nikki, but she gets distraught every time I've brought it up. She cries and accuses me of favoring Jake and being a jerk, which is not true. I told her if she picks a major with a $100,000 starting salary, I'll gladly pay for her to go to her dream school, but there's no way I'm paying $300,000 for her to be a teacher. Now she's got family members involved. Some are staying out of it, some agree with me, and some are telling me not to play favorites. I feel terrible, so I'm beginning to doubt myself. Am I wrong? Edit to answer a few recurring questions. I thought it made it clear, but apparently I didn't. I'm not limiting Nikki's education to $20,000 a year. I told her that's the max I'm willing to pay for her education degree. I'm more than happy to pay $75,000 a year if she picks another degree that will have a better return. For a while, she thought about being a doctor and fell in love with England. We have family there. So I even offered to pay for her to go to Oxford, which will be double the cost of her brother's tuition. But she's adamant about being a middle school teacher, and I'm unwilling to spend $300,000 that I worked hard for on an education degree. You're the jerk. This whole post reeks of favoritism. I hope the dentist switches to an art major halfway through. The fact that OP made this post and hasn't considered himself a jerk is completely alien to me. I wouldn't like him to be my dad, that's for sure. You're the jerk. To be fair, you should at least pay what you're paying for your son's education and let her take out student loans for the rest. You're the jerk. You are clearly favoriting your son here. He's following the family traditions, and you're happy to take on a load of debt for him, but you won't do the same for your daughter because her career choice is a problem. You only take on debt for your kid if they do the careers you want them to do. Go back to your daughter before you lose her. He doesn't say he's taking on debt at all. He's considering return on investment, as everyone who's going to college should. The return on investment should be your kid's happiness. You should feel really bad. You're paying fully for the kid who will make enough to easily pay off some loans with a great profession, and not for your daughter who wants to be a teacher, which is incredibly noble and needed in this country, to burden her with loans that she will take forever to repay because she will make crap. Because we treat teachers like crap. And guess what? Apparently so do you. You're the jerk. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know.
Never ask a bunch of people on Reddit for financial advice, unless you're in the right subreddit. There are a few subs with people who are actually financially literate.
Am I the jerk for letting my mother have a copy of the key to our new house, despite my wife's objection? I, 34 male, recently bought a one-story house. Note that it was purchased solely by me. My wife did not help save for it. I started saving for it before I even met her, and it's in my name. When my parents threw us a party for this happy occasion, Mom asked for a copy of the key in case of an emergency. I let her have it, which made my wife upset. She didn't say anything at the time, but she waited till we were alone, and she started arguing with me, saying that I shouldn't have let my mother have a copy of the key. I said why, since my mother is known to respect our privacy and is a very trusted member of the family. She said that she does not feel comfortable with the idea of someone else who's not a resident having a copy of the key. She also brought up how my mother didn't pay a penny towards the house, so this should disqualify her from getting the key. I said it wasn't a big deal, but she kept persisting, saying that I needed to take the key back. Quite frankly, this had me fuming. I pointed out that I'm the one who bought the house, and it's my decision to decide who gets to have a copy of the key. End of story. She screamed at me, saying that technically she did contribute towards the house savings, back when she used to pay for our rent and daily expenses while I saved money. I told her that she was acting as if I put my mom's name on the title, which is ridiculous, but she said that I have no respect for her opinions and keep undermining her input. We've been going back and forth on it since then. She's now letting me know that if I don't take the key back, then she'll do it herself. I think she's being irrational and unreasonable, acting like that over a copy of the house key. This decision I made could save us one day in case of an emergency, but she kept downplaying it. ETA. I think it's crucial to mention that there's no conflict between my mother and my wife. They're on near perfect terms, all right? I thought that I've already established that above. You're the jerk. And that is why you can't trust no one when it comes to money. You played your wife. You probably told her that you would save for a shared home, and that's why she should support you and pay your share of the rent. Now, she didn't contribute a penny to your house. Your house. She gets no say, but your mom does. You're the jerk. I'm a bit confused as to how OP can admit that the wife paid rent while he put his savings towards a house, and then go back and say the wife didn't contribute. There's a lot of unanswered questions here. Does he really not understand that if she wasn't paying the entirety of the rent, then he would not have been able to save as much? How long was she paying rent, and how much did she have in savings before she started doing that? What was the actual agreement there? And on that note, why is the wife not making a bigger deal out of not having her name on the house? Did she agree to it for some reason that benefits her? Is this actually a bigger deal to her than OP is letting on, and that's why she's so resistant to the idea of his mom getting a key? Does he pull the "it's my house" thing often? It feels like OP left out a huge chunk of the story here. The wife's name is not on the house? Oh, that's a deal breaker. It would be for me as well, assuming the house was bought while they were married, and there isn't a very unique, very compelling reason for the wife to not want her name on the house. OP hasn't offered any explanation aside from what's in the original post, so I can only conclude he's a controlling jerk who took advantage of his wife to buy a house in his name alone and is now holding that over her. A real prize, truly. You're the jerk. Your attitude of "I paid for it" isn't on. You're married. It's our home, not my home now. In any case, your wife is right. She absolutely has financially contributed to the property. She paid the rent, which allowed you to save. Pretty disgusting of you to dismiss this. Your mother having a key to your home is a big deal, and something you and your wife both need to be comfortable with. If you aren't mature enough to make joint decisions with your wife, you shouldn't be married. I think your wife is right. You don't seem to respect her at all. Huge red flag that you only put the house in your name. You've basically used your wife to enable you to do what you want. Not the jerk. Once again, what we have here is Reddit hypocrisy at its finest. I've seen several stories on here where the wife is the one who owns the house and gets into a fight with her husband about things similar to this. Of course, when that's the case, you all side with her and tell her that it's her house and she should kick him out. I see lots of you saying you hope his wife divorces him and takes him to the cleaners. The sad thing is, OP's wife could actually divorce him for this and get half the house since they were married when he bought it, which would cause him to have to sell it and split the money with her during the divorce proceedings. All because OP wants his mom to have a key in case of emergencies. If this doesn't show you what's wrong with our society, I don't know what will. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
If Reddit boy tried to give his mom a key to our house, I'd tell him it's probably a good idea. You never know when an emergency is going to happen.
Karen trashed my condo after years of kindness, ends up paying the price. I leased my rental condo to a single mother with 3 kids in 2016. It was a 3-bed, 2-bath. I had a grace period of 3 days for rent in there, but they were always late. I would not charge them late fees, thinking she's a single mother, and I would follow up consistently to get my rent. Most of the time, I would receive it 2 to 3 weeks late and sometimes 2 months late. In my mind, as long as they're paying and I can help by giving them some time, all was good. Suddenly, I find that in 2020, her husband lives there too. He travels for work, but he lives there, and the money that she's been sending me through Zelle has always been coming out of his account since day one. I let it go and I'm still civil, and he starts communicating with me at every delay. Sometimes he would go silent for 4 to 5 weeks and I wouldn't be able to reach any of them. I would threaten eviction and they would come back and pay me. In hindsight, I should have evicted them, but lockdown happened and I didn't want to throw them out. Finally, at the end of 2022, they informed me that by March of 2023, they would be out. They just bought a house and they were very appreciative of me being kind and helping them along the way. They were supposed to leave by March 6 of 2023, and I told them that if they clean the house and leave it in a good condition, they don't have to worry about rent for March. March 6 comes and they tell me that they're still moving and cleaning. I let it go as I had no potential renter yet, and I was just glad that they were cleaning it up. I still didn't have the key to the condo. I would communicate with them during the month of March, saying potential renters wanted to see the place, and they would tell me to send them over. Potential renters would go there and knock, but no one would open the door, and I would try to reach out and they would not respond to me. This happened twice, and they would call me later saying the potential renters never showed up and lied to me. I was getting antsy, and on March 20th, I called and texted both the husband and the wife for a few days straight, asking them to give me the keys. Nothing, no response. On March 24th, my friend and I decided to head over there to see what was going on. We live an hour away. I called both of them and no response. I decided to look them up on the county land records. I knew the county they were building a house in, and I was able to find their new address. My friend and I decided to go to their house and get the key. We get there, knock on the door. The son opens and yells for his mom. His mom comes down and pretends to cry, saying that they lost the key. In my mind, then why the heck couldn't they tell me? And why the heck would you ignore my countless texts and phone calls? At this point, I'm still being civil, and I said that's fine. I'll get the locksmith and charge them the fees. We go to the condo next, and to our surprise, the condo was open. They never bothered to lock it. As soon as my friend and I entered, these 3 words came out of our mouths. Oh my gosh. There was this horrible smell. All the walls had patches over them from a bad paint job. The fridge had food rotting in it. Carpets stunk like they hadn't been cleaned. In one room on the carpet, there was a big paint stain, and the door was also busted. It was the worst feeling because I was so nice to them, and they left my condo unlocked for days, destroyed my place, and didn't even have the decency to clean it or pick up my phone. I was furious that my kindness over the years was repaid like this. Finally, not knowing the extent of the damage, I reached out to them saying I'll keep the $1,000 deposit, and I'm asking them to pay $1,800 more for the cleanup job. They decline on text. I tell them I will sue them.
They ended up getting aggressive and told me they know the law too, and I'm not getting a single penny out of them. Then I worked with a lawyer in the first week, still not knowing the full extent of the damage, just some. I sent a demand letter for $3,000. Nothing. Then I worked with a contractor, and just for the painting, it cost me around $7,000, as there were around 1,000 patches that they had to sand off. I'm not even exaggerating. I got multiple quotes. The cleaning crew went in the morning at 4 a.m. and ended at 3 p.m. Everything that you can think of that was dirty was dirty. The oven, fridge had not been cleaned for years. There was heavy clogging in both bathroom drains. The toilet was worse than a public toilet. They charged me $600 to clean the house. It ended up costing me $7,600. I continue with the lawyer and end up filing a claim for $11,000, though people told me that I'm wasting money and they will never pay. For me, I couldn't let them get away with it. I ended up charging them for late fees for not paying the month of March that I had agreed to waive if they had cleaned the house. I had in my contract $50 per day for any delay. By the time I had filed, it was easily a few $1,000s. I asked a few Redditors for my throwaway account, and they told me about late fee regulations, but my lawyer told me that they did sign a contract, and in this state, we can sue them for $50 per day until the day we file. Then the saga begins. It was my responsibility to serve them and let them know the mediation. Then it was my responsibility to serve them for the court date. They actively avoided being served twice, and it cost me $400 just to serve them twice. They still didn't show up for mediation or the court date, and judgment was filed in my favor as they didn't show up. Finally, an arrest warrant was out for both of them. I was asked to serve them again. I begged the clerk, saying I cannot spend more money to serve them. She got a document signed by the judge for an alternate method of serving that included text and email. I texted and emailed them their arrest warrants and the next court dates. They finally showed up, and the judge made them give me all their information. They were in court, but I could appear on Zoom. I was able to ask them all their information, including social, driver's license number, bank account statements, salary, and work address. I have to say I felt a bit sorry, as it seems they were still struggling and didn't have enough money to pay their rent based on their statements. The husband earns $150,000 a year and the wife earns $60,000 a year, but their bank account didn't have any money. Finally, I told them I could start garnishing 25% of their monthly wages, or they could pay me immediately. They promised to pay me in chunks of $1,500 every month. I still don't have all of it yet, but them coming there and giving me all of their information was the best revenge I could get. If they would have just agreed to pay me $1,800 in the beginning, or the $3,000 that I demanded, they wouldn't have been on the hook for $11,000. How much you want to bet those renters are going to be posting on Reddit about how much they hate landlords? Karen is furious that I let my daughter ride her pony to school. I'm 36, female, and my daughter, who's 7, asked if she could ride her pony to school last week. For context, we have a small paddock attached to our home where we keep 2 horses, one for me and one for her. Every morning before school, my daughter gets all of her pony chores done before we leave, and we normally walk to school, which takes about 20 minutes. We live on the outskirts of a fairly populated city where it's not uncommon to see horses occasionally, but we are by no means in a rural village. I agreed to let my daughter ride her pony to school because I thought it was a harmless, fun thing to do, and also gives the pony some exercise as we had evening plans and wouldn't be riding that evening. We arrived at the school gates and, of course, gathered a little bit of a crowd, which wasn't a problem. The pony is very good and lapped up all the pats and strokes from the kids. One girl came bounding over from the year above my daughter and started shouting at me, saying she wanted to ride. I politely told her that she couldn't because she doesn't have a riding hat and she would have to learn on a safer horse. She immediately started hysterically crying and pleading with her mom, saying she wanted to ride. Her mom looked at me with disgust and said, "See, this is what happens when you have no self-awareness and bring a horse to a school," and stormed off, dragging her kid with her. I was a bit taken aback, but ignored her, sent my kid into school, and walked the pony home. I was talking to my friend this weekend, and she said I was in fact the problem and I was blatantly showing off and should have known that this would have caused upset and problems. My response is, I turn up to the school in my riding gear regularly, so everyone probably knows I have horses. Is that showing off too? All I wanted to do was let my daughter do something a bit silly and fun. Now I'm really overthinking it though, and almost feel nervous to do school drop-off tomorrow. So, am I the jerk for letting my daughter ride her horse to school? Edit. I want to clear some things up. First, I'm based in England. Second, the pony never went onto school grounds. There's a small patch of grass about 30 meters from the main school gate, and we stood there, so no kids with allergies would be subject to horse germs if they didn't deliberately come over to us. This also means that I don't feel like I should have run it by the school. And lastly, the pony is an ex-riding school pony. It has been surrounded by kids its whole life and used to do kids' birthday parties and everything. I know animals are unpredictable, but I was 99.9% sure that the pony would be fine and actually just appreciate the attention from the tiny humans. He absolutely did. Not the jerk. That woman blames other people for her clear lack of parenting skills. She has to manage her kids' expectations. My husband takes our daughter to school on a motorcycle, and it draws the same attention without the entitled demanding a ride and rude response. Edit. Would bringing a puppy with you get the same responses? I think not. Not the jerk. The other parents need to teach their kids that you can't always have what other people have. It's a fact of life. And this is coming from someone that grew up below the poverty line. Are they going to be mad at another parent for driving an expensive vehicle? If I was the parent, I would just tell my kid, look at the pretty horsey, but don't touch it unless they let you, okay? I'm going with you're the jerk. It does sound like showing off, and you should have had the self-awareness to know it would create a spectacle. They're 7-year-olds. Of course they all want to ride the pony. Maybe you could talk to your daughter's teacher about bringing the pony someday when you can offer rides to everyone. You're the jerk. Come on, it's not rural. Your kid doesn't need to ride a horse to school and cause a ruckus. Sure, it's on parents to ensure their kids know boundaries, but come on. A horse at school is not something a parent needs to deal with. Drop off and pick up is busy, hurried. This parent didn't feel entitled to her kid riding. She was annoyed that you felt entitled to cause chaos during an already challenging time. Did you even check with the school admin before doing this? Just lacking consideration and self-awareness. I'd call the office and apologize. If they say it's fine, okay. I'd be shocked if they said it was. You're the jerk. Animals don't belong at school. Someone could have been severely allergic and gone into anaphylactic shock, or it could have hurt someone. It doesn't matter how well-behaved any animal is. You can't test their behavior in every single situation. People saying this is the same thing as a Ferrari or a motorcycle are delusional. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. I would have been worried about one of them getting kicked or something like that. Anything's possible with a bunch of unruly 7-year-olds, and I'm fully prepared for the horse experts to chime in and tell me how impossible that would be. Just like those snake experts who say that it's totally safe for 3-year-olds to play with the world's largest snakes. You can't be serious. There's really snake experts that say that? Yeah, they say as long as the snake was raised by humans, then it won't see humans as foods and it will never try to eat the kid. Humans never cease to amaze me. I planned the office Halloween event, and now I feel like absolute garbage. I was recently hired in an assistant role at a law firm fresh out of college. In comparison to other people in the office, excluding the other assistants, I'm pretty young, 22 female. One of the partners put me in charge of the office Halloween party, so I've been planning everything for about 2 weeks. What I came up with was wearing costumes into the office and an EOD party in the decorated, spooky conference room where people in the office paint pumpkins as treats, select mystery coffee pods, different flavors, as tricks, and just eat sweet food together while streaming the Charlie Brown special. I got into the office early this morning to decorate the office, and the partner in question got annoyed when she came in and saw what I was doing. Even though I got approval from her, she was disappointed that this is what I went with, described it as incredibly juvenile, and said that I should have gone with something like costumes and going to an office happy hour. She's now confirming with the other assistant in charge of the holiday Christmas party that it is an adult affair, expensive dinner outing, and it seems like I stressed everyone out, and I just feel really embarrassed right now. These office morale activities are important, and now I feel like I'm so deeply in the wrong and I messed everything up. Update. To give a bit of context, 1. When I was tasked with planning the event, I did reach out to the girl who had this job before me. She's now in law school, and she said they did pumpkin carving last year, so I pivoted to painting to change it up a bit and decrease on mess. I also added the mystery coffee pod and decorating the office as a fun little thing. 2. I did get the partner's approval before planning the whole event because I had to budget everything out with a proposal. So she knew about it, but she likely A. forgot about the thing until she saw me decorating, or B. didn't think I was serious. She was also upset because our sister office
went out for drinks the day before, and she wanted to impress our new partner, who was sick and couldn't even attend. 3. For everyone who said that Charlie Brown was juvenile, I agree, but I was going to play the movie for the back half of the event. It was an hour, because it was mentioned to me that another partner was bringing their daughter, who's 5, who was visiting internationally. But my boss thought that I would have planned a happy hour afterwards or something. I didn't think so. Anyways, I went through with the party and it went really well. I ended up not buying any alcohol and just went through with pumpkin painting over some Halloween music, candy, and fresh-baked cookies, and some warm apple cider. The people who partook in the mystery coffee pods liked their flavors for the most part. As for the event, not everyone in the office showed up, including my boss, but about 75% did. About 3 others were in costumes, and they all had a decent time. Their daughter also had a good time decorating cookies and watching Charlie Brown while waiting for her dad. All in all, I think I'll leave the adult party planning to my slightly older coworker. She's the social butterfly of the office, but I'm just glad that today wasn't a disaster. They tell a kid fresh out of college to put an office party together. What did they expect? They should appreciate cute, campy Halloween stuff. It's Halloween. Goths hold the line. It's candy time, not pretentious cocktail hour. Bruh, your boss really sucks. Am I the jerk for moving out and leaving my mom high and dry for childcare? I, female 23, until recently lived with my mom and my half-brother and sister, Mason who's 12 and Layla who's 10. Mom has split custody with their dad, Chris. When he was little, Mason begged and begged to get a dog, but he couldn't because of my allergies. Mom and Chris split up when the kids were 5 and 3, so when Chris had his own place set up, he got them a dog from the shelter, Hulk, who's now 11. A couple of months back, Chris was evicted. His new place doesn't allow dogs, and he couldn't find anyone else to take them. So he asked Mom if she could, promising that he would be looking for somewhere that allows pets in the meantime. Mom agreed without even telling me beforehand. My allergies aren't life-threatening, but they do cause cold-like symptoms that make me feel utterly miserable and uncomfortable. I was annoyed that I hadn't even been consulted. I'd like to note that at no point have I suggested that they should get rid of the dog, and I don't think it either. I know how much the kids love Hulk and how losing him would break their hearts. What I did do was ask Mom to agree to what I thought were reasonable accommodations. 1. He does not set foot in my bedroom or the kitchen. The doors are kept shut. He has no need to go in either room. The back door to the garden is in the dining room. 2. He only goes into the bathroom when he needs a bath. That door is also kept shut. 3. I'm not responsible for the dog. If Mom's not there, then Mason and Layla are responsible for taking care of him. I'd put down food and water or let him go out to use the bathroom if I was the only one there with him, but that's it. I would only handle him in emergencies, such as to get him out of the house in a fire or take him to the vet for an emergency. Mom agreed to these, but from the get-go, they were not being adhered to. The kids were constantly leaving doors open, even my bedroom door. I found him in my room multiple times. I then discovered it was Mom too. I came home from work to see her coming out of my room after leaving some clean clothes in there for me and not shutting the door. Hulk ran in and jumped onto my bed where my clean clothes were left. I shooed him out, put the clothes back into the washing machine along with my bedding. I opened the window, then vacuumed my carpet. Mom thought I was overreacting. This continued for a while, and my complaints fell on deaf ears. I started to consider moving out. My friend and her boyfriend have their own place with a spare room they've offered to me before. I turned it down initially because I had things good at home. Mom didn't charge me rent. I only pay a portion of the food shopping, so I could put most of my money into savings. In return, I help to look after the kids. Mom works a rotating shift pattern. A week of mornings, 6 to 2, a week of afternoons, 2 to 10. This makes childcare difficult. On the days when Mom has custody, I get them up and off to school on her morning shifts, and on her afternoon shifts, they are now old enough to be on their own for the 2 hours between finishing school and me getting home from work. I cook them dinner, make sure they've done their homework, and enforce their bedtime. I've never minded this. They're good kids, and they don't really need looking after anymore. They're old enough to be left to their own devices. I messaged my friend and asked her if her offer was still good. She said yes, and I made arrangements to move in a few weeks' time. I wanted to give my mom a reasonable amount of notice. Mom wasn't happy about this. She asked what on earth she was going to do about childcare now. I told her that they're old enough to get themselves up and off to school. Literally, all I did was wake them up and see them off. They got themselves dressed and their own breakfast sorted, and they already let themselves in after school anyway. Plus, I'd only be 5 minutes away.
I'd come straight away if they need me. I can understand not wanting them cooking. Layla doesn't know how, and Mason forgets to turn the oven off. But if she doesn't start work until 2, she can cook them something to warm up in the microwave. She just said, no they can't, and then trivialized the whole situation about how it was silly to get upset over some sniffles, how she agreed to my outrageous conditions, so why am I complaining? I moved out as scheduled. Mom only spoke to me either to argue or to try to use the kids to guilt me. Apparently, she didn't expect me to go through with it. I moved out this morning. My dad borrowed a van and helped me move my stuff, and he said it's a silly reason to move out. It's not like being around a dog is gonna hurt me. At this point, it's not even about the dog. It's about her not treating me with basic respect after I've helped her raise her kids, then using those same kids to guilt me. She keeps calling me, asking when I'm gonna come back. The latest one sounded like she was genuinely crying. She was apologizing and said she doesn't know what she's going to do on Monday. She's in at 6, still refuses to accept they're old enough. I've got family texting me, telling me to stop acting like a brat and go home. How dare I upset my mother who's been so good to me? How dare I abandon her kids? So Reddit, am I the jerk? Edit. First, a lot of people are recommending various medications to me. My GP has tried me with a few different medications. They do lessen the symptoms, but I still experience them. I'd also be wary about buying over-the-counter to try, as I am on other medications besides these. Secondly, a lot of people are unfairly calling Chris a deadbeat. He really isn't. He has them 50% of the time. He actually suggested changing their custody arrangement so he can have them on the weeks she's working afternoons. Mom didn't want to deal with going to court. I'm fairly certain you don't have to if both parents agree, but no one listens to me. Also, the reason he was evicted was because his landlord sold the house. Not his fault. Some people are saying they're too young to be alone. There's no minimum legal age to be alone in the UK. I was 10 when I started being left alone. When I was younger, I had an older cousin that babysat me sometimes, from when he was about 12. Usually, my nan had me when Mum and Chris were working. This was before Layla and Mason were born. She passed when I was 10, which was when I started being left alone. At the time, my dad lived further away. I was 16 when Mum and Chris split. That was when I started looking after them before and after school. They were 3 and 5, so needed more looking after than they do now. I did get paid at that time. It turned into free rent when I left school and started working. Mum did my laundry that day. I did it other days. My clothes always went in with everyone else's because it saved energy. I wasn't some lazy freeloader letting my mom do everything. Not the jerk. You are not your mother's servant. Although you are right to worry about what her apparent lack of self-sufficiency means for your siblings, this is absolutely not a reason for you to put your own life on hold. OP is 23. Did her mom think free childcare was gonna last forever? Not the jerk. You aren't required to live at home because it's convenient for your mom, and you darn sure aren't required to live in a place where you're constantly subjected to allergens and sick.
Karen Aunt shows up in the middle of the night demanding to live with me. We recently had an election in the US. My aunt supported one side while her husband and adult offspring supported the other side. The election did not go the way that my aunt wanted it to. My aunt proceeded to flip out, breaking things and yelling at them. Her husband called the cops. The cops declined to arrest her for anything, but suggested that she find a different place to stay for the night. This happened yesterday in New Jersey. Fast forward to 2 a.m. today. Here I am sleeping peacefully in my home with my family, over 500 miles away from all of that drama. My fence alarm goes off, waking me up. I don't know if it's a bear or a trespasser. Turns out, my aunt cut the lock off of my front gate because she couldn't get in, and I wasn't answering my phone. Why did she have bolt cutters in her car? So I ask her, "What are you doing?" She starts crying and screaming. Mind you, this is at 2 a.m. in a quiet rural community, about how the devil took her family and they threw her out. And she says that since she has nowhere else to go, I need to let her in so that she can stay in my guest room for a while. I told her one of my guildies is using that room right now. The room is occupied. The person came all the way from Texas out to West Virginia to hang out with me. I'm not gonna toss them out with 30 seconds of notice because my aunt showed up. So she decides to call the police and tell them that I'm keeping her from entering her home. We're out in the woods, so the cops don't get here quick. 4:41 a.m., the cops show up. I see them talking to her in my driveway. She shows them the bolt cutters and the ruined lock. A few minutes later, the officer knocks on my door. "Your tenant claims that..." I immediately cut him off, and I tell him that I do not even have a tenant.
I own and occupy this structure. I offer to show him the deed. Well, this woman claims. I cut him off again. What's the address on her ID say? At this point, the cop is upset at me. I can tell, so I try to de-escalate the situation. Look, man, she doesn't live here. She has never lived here. That's my aunt. She lives in New Jersey. Please check her ID card. The cop calms down a bit and lets me know that he will talk to her and then come back. About 10 minutes later, the cop comes back to my door. 3 of them this time, not just the one from earlier. One of them had stripes and a rocker on his arm, so I could tell he was important. He asks me if there's any way Aunt can stay here for the night because she's too drunk to drive, so he can't let her back on the road. I told him that no, she cannot stay here, but that I'm sure there's room in the local jail. The cop asks me if she can just sleep in her car in my driveway and leave in the morning. I told him absolutely not. When she wakes up in the morning, I would just have to call them to come get her off my property, so that would solve nothing. I asked them to remove her from my property. Long story short, her car got towed and she's in the drunk tank. No charges pending for the night. So much for sleeping tonight. My kids need to be up for school soon. Crazy how all the cops refused to arrest her. If you wanted to, you could have asked to press charges for destruction of property due to her taking a bolt cutter to your lock. Even more so if she did any damage to the gate, also for trespassing. This woman drove over 500 miles inebriated, trespassed on private property, destroyed private property, lied to the police, and still didn't get arrested? I would be pressing charges for the trespassing and the property damage, then remind her it would have been cheaper to get a hotel room. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you have let your aunt stay with you or not? Please let us know.
Absolutely not. Don't we all have at least one aunt or uncle who acts like this?
Am I the jerk for refusing to drive my stepdaughter home after my husband voluntold me to? So my significant other and I have a daughter together, and he has a daughter with someone else. Admittedly, he has a strained co-parenting relationship with the mom. She's 5, and I picked her up to visit this morning. My significant other doesn't drive. We had a great day together and had plans to go for dinner. He called the mother and said we had reservations at 6 and she could pick her up after. We had some very mild snow in the area today, and the mother asked my significant other if he could bring her home instead because she wasn't comfortable driving. He told her yes without even asking me. I too am uncomfortable driving when the weather is less than desirable, and not to mention I had already driven half an hour there and half an hour back to pick her up this morning. Plus driven us all around the city in the afternoon having fun with the kids. So he tells me that I'm now driving her home, to which I say, no? Why can't her mother pick her up? And he says she doesn't want to drive in the snow. So I say, well, what about me? You know I don't like driving in this either. Plus, I already picked her up, and you didn't even ask me. Significant other blows a head gasket in front of the kids and starts losing his mind on me, telling me that I'm being irrational and that I'm ruining everything. He also had some colorful word choices for me. I packed up both kids in the car and drove my stepdaughter home on that moment because I didn't want her to be involved in seeing her father acting like this. She was upset and scared and told her mother she doesn't want to ever come back to my house. The mom isn't upset with me, but my significant other is now accusing me of making his access to his kid even more strained. I told him he needs to be considerate of other people and stop making plans for others when he doesn't have a license, and that he should be asking me to do things instead of just assuming I'll play taxi driver. So Reddit, am I the jerk? Update. Significant other's parents think I'm a total jerk. They said I should have just kept quiet and dealt with it the following day instead of standing my ground, and that I should have cut significant other some slack. Not the jerk, but now you know why he is an ex and why they have a strained relationship. Yup, if OP is smart, she'll bounce before she has a kid with him and deal with the same BS as his ex has to deal with. OP, we have a 10-year-old, and we've been off and on since 2008. Try staying off with him permanently. So let's see. 1. Significant other lost his license for a DUI, got a 3-year suspension, even though a first offense is usually a year, which you didn't seem to find odd, and makes you drive him everywhere. 2. Significant other got a girl pregnant while you were on a break and broken up, and for some reason you got back together and are now taking care of this kid on his days. 3. Significant other, without asking you, agrees for you to drive his kid back to the mother in inclement weather. 4.
When you object, significant other blows a head gasket and starts screaming at you. You've not mentioned anything about this, but is this guy employed? If so, are you expected to shuttle him back and forth to work as well? What exactly is he bringing into this relationship? Not the jerk for this, but you're the jerk big time for keeping this guy around. Not the jerk. Notice stepdaughter's mom didn't blame you because she knows what your significant other is. She probably feels sorry for you. Your significant other scared his daughter to the point that she doesn't even want to go back. That's your life now. Do you want your own kids to feel that way? This is more than driving in the snow. He needs anger management. Don't allow him to behave that way to you alone or in front of the kids. If he is always like this, you need to take the kids and leave. He didn't mind you risking everybody in the car in the snow and seemingly didn't ride with you. And does he not drive because he can't, or is it because he lost his license? Karen demands I make my house wheelchair accessible. I'm 22, female. My cousin is 24, male, and he's getting married next weekend. He proposed to his girlfriend, who's 25, on Wednesday and wants to get married by the next Saturday. They want to hold the ceremony at our grandparents' house, which I've the legal inheritance of. I've no objections to them wanting to get married there or anything. Also, there's no reason to technically rush the wedding, but they say they are in a very happy place and want to be married ASAP. Well, whatever rows their boat. They want to hold the ceremony in the backyard, and there's this platform of sorts where they want the wedding party to sit at reception. The thing is, one of their bridesmaids, who's about 24 or 25, is a wheelchair user, and so they want to add a ramp to the platform. Now the conflict is, they've asked me to get a ramp there. I've talked to the contractor who's done most of the furniture and stuff in that house, and he says he can only get to it next month. He's busy with some personal affairs. I told my cousin this, and he and his fiancée are very mad at me when I refuse to hire a different contractor or get a quick work done. I've offered to attach a temporary ramp, the detachable kind, which I could rent from a nearby shop instead. The bridesmaid is refusing this, saying she deserves a better accommodative and accepting facility. Thing to be noted is, the cousin doesn't want to pay for ramp construction since it's not his house, and doesn't even want to pay any percentage of rent for ramp. Also, the rest of the house is wheelchair accessible since my grandma needed it, including washrooms. It's only this platform for some reason that has no ramp, but only stairs. I don't want any sloppy or expensive ramp done in a rush because I don't have that kind of money saved or want to compromise the quality. The bride texted me saying she and my cousin have always walked on eggshells around me to make accommodations for my handicap and feelings. This is the least I can do for them. For reference, my handicap is my autism. It's never occurred to me it's a handicap or issue for people, at least family, to be around me. When I talked to my parents about this, they were very angry at her and have refused to attend the wedding where their kid is being disrespected. When my aunt, the groom's mom, found out about this whole thing, she was red angry and said she might not attend the wedding either. Now the bride is calling me a jerk and an instigator. Am I the jerk? Edit. Mostly everyone saying I shouldn't let them host the wedding there seems unfair, since it was his grandparents' home too. But yes, I may not attend the wedding. It's disrespectful, I can see. Of course you're not the jerk. The temporary ramp is a common solution for situations like this. Frankly, I've even seen wheelchairs just manually lifted over obstacles by a couple of capable helpers, and no one batted an eye at that either. Not the jerk. Your house is not a wedding venue. It's your home. Any and all expenses for them using or modifying should first be approved by you and paid for by them. It's enough of a favor to let them use your home. Do you realize the time and effort that's going to be on you to have a whole bunch of people in and out of your home, using your bathrooms, your kitchen, etc.? The cleaning before and after, the paper supplies, sewage, water use, and more. Yeah, you're not the one who should be bending backwards for this event. In fact, you wouldn't be to blame if you changed your mind because of their ridiculous demands and expectations. Way too much. Karen tries to get my husband to cheat on me. I exposed her to her husband. I, 31 female, am married to my husband, 31 male, who we'll call Scott. So Scott is AP security, secret shopper, at a big corporate store. He goes to work looking pretty fresh, smelling good, and he's a good-looking guy, so he gets compliments and whatnot, which makes him feel good, and I totally get it. They can look, but don't touch, you know? Anyways, so there's this female coworker who we'll call Karen, 37 female, and Karen is married.
The other day, Karen went on her secondary Facebook she uses for online gaming and messaged my husband. It started off innocent at first, asking things like, "Is this the Scott guy from work?" And it turned into saying things like, "Hi Scotty," smiley face. He doesn't go by Scotty. And then asking for relationship advice about some other guy at work who was not her husband. So one night she messaged him, and out of the blue, she asks my husband if he would like to make $30 an hour being someone's side piece. He immediately showed me and involved me in the conversation. As the conversation continued, it became clear she was talking about herself. That totally caught me by surprise, because who does that? My husband tried to nicely tell her that that's not the way to handle things and she needs to fix her relationship. He also said some stuff that I was not at all happy with, like that he understood her frustration. This caused a fight between us, and I ended up taking it upon myself to message her and go off on her for doing that knowing that he's married. She wasn't at all remorseful and just made excuses. She acknowledged in previous texts to my husband that he has a wife, so she knew. He also immediately reported this to HR as harassment, however, they're just dragging their feet. In the meantime, she ended up approaching him again at work, asking him why he showed me, his wife, the messages. He blew her off basically and said, obviously she was going to see them, and he just didn't want it to be awkward. He told me about this, and I know it's going to be awkward no matter what, and he needs to be more clear with Karen about wanting nothing to do with this. Fast forward another week. She messaged him again at work this time. She tells him, come to the back room, a place where she knew there wouldn't be anyone else around. He said, why, and she never answered him via text. Later that night, she walks up to him asking him to delete that last text thread. This is where he finally told her off and basically said, this BS has to stop. I'm not dishonest with my wife and this isn't going to happen. She walked away and pretends everything is peachy the next time she sees me, smiling and trying to say hi. Here's where I may be the jerk. I don't think it's very fair to her husband to not know and just be with someone who does this kind of thing. So I Googled and found him and his phone number, and then I called him and told him the whole story. And as for me being too harsh on my husband, in their first conversation, she ended up feeling stupid and tried to backtrack and say, oh, I'm sorry. My husband responded with, don't be sorry. This is what really made me upset, because not only did he excuse her behavior, but said he understood her. I saw red. He admitted this was a poor way to handle things and is fully supportive of me being petty. Edit to add to my conversation with Karen's husband since it's getting lost in the sea of comments. Me. Is this so-and-so? Him. Yes. Me. Is your wife Karen Stupid Face? Yes. Okay, Steve. You don't know me, but I think you should know this. Your wife asked my husband to be her side piece for money at work. Really? Wow. Okay. Me. I go into detail about how I know it's his wife, her gaming profile, etc. I'm really sorry to be the one to tell you, but I think you need to know that this is how she acts at work. What's your husband's name? I'd like to keep him out of this because it was her who approached him multiple times and isn't taking the hint. Again, I'm sorry. No, thank you. I would rather know. Good luck, Steve. Bye. Bye. Thank you. This is the basic tone of it, with some of the words maybe being slightly different. Some further context to the situation. A friend told me that it's worth mentioning that my husband and I have a young family. Our kids are 3 years old and 8 months, and I'm extremely protective of them. This woman, in my opinion, tried to sabotage that happy family picture. Am I the jerk for hanging up on my wife when she used my words against me? I, 37 male, have been working late the last few weeks, 6 to 6:30, 7 days a week, 12-hour shifts. My wife, Elizabeth, who's 41, and I were talking a few nights ago while I was doing the dishes. I had also done the weekly grocery shopping, bathed and put our kid to bed. Elizabeth's day was busy too. She works full-time, drops off and picks up our kid at school, had taken her to dancing. She started telling me about problems at work. I listened for a few minutes, then she started complaining about my family and their communication skills. We have a family get-together this weekend, and the plans are unclear because my family are poor communicators. I acknowledged this, then said, can we talk about something more positive? I want to talk with and spend time with you, but I'd like to discuss things that build me up. She stopped, stared daggers at me, and said, that was not okay, and walked off upstairs. The next day I was coming home early, but I hit traffic. She called when I was in the car, and we chatted. Then she said I sounded upset and asked me what's wrong. I said, I'm aggravated because for the first time in 2 weeks, I left work after 10 hours and not 12, but I got caught in traffic, and I'm going to get home at the same time anyway. She said,
How would you feel if I said, can we talk about something more positive?
I hung up. I got home about 5 minutes later, and when I walked in the door, she said,
That was not okay.
After dinner, I said, I know you're upset, so let's discuss it now so it doesn't fester. Elizabeth said that last night she just needed to vent and needed me to listen. I said I could listen some, but I was so worn out I didn't have the capacity to listen to too much negativity. I said I know my family's communication skills are poor, but I still didn't want to hear her bash them for minutes on end. Elizabeth said it wasn't okay I hung up on her, and I was out of line. I said, You asked me what was bothering me, then when I told you, you said, Can we talk about something more positive? It felt like you baited me, then took a shot at me because you were upset about last night. She said it wasn't a shot. I'd know if she took a shot at me. She was trying to teach me empathy for another human because I'm not empathetic. I apologized for hanging up on her and said that there was a better way I could have handled that interaction by saying something like, That felt like a shot. What was your intent? Elizabeth said,
Why does that feel like a shot? That's a you thing. You need to work on how you take things I say. Give me the benefit of the doubt. You're the one who's taking shots at me. You always believe the worst of me.
I said that I'd try to give her the benefit of the doubt in the future, but the situation felt like she was coming at me. She insists she was just trying to teach me how to have empathy. Part of me thinks this is one of those shoes not so comfortable on the other foot, but I also feel these are different. I need some help sorting through if I'm the jerk or not. Edit. Adding in the following because a lot of people have asked about it. I couldn't include it because of the character limit. The get-together this weekend is my brother's wedding. I'm standing in it, and our daughter is the flower girl. We didn't get a schedule of when we were supposed to be where until earlier this week, and we keep getting hit with last-minute additions of places to be. I've told my family that we can't be at some of them because that's too short notice and we need a break, but we will be at others. She was venting because we didn't get the schedule of when to be where until a day or two before the flight, about 5 days before the wedding, and because things kept getting added last minute. Sounds like you also have poor communication skills. Validating her for her frustration, but then changing the subject isn't really anything. You could have offered a solution like, I'll call them up and find out what's what. But instead, you acknowledged it and then changed the subject. Then you found yourself in a frustrating situation and she called you out. And you hanging up was a tantrum because she showed you how hypocritical you were being. You're the jerk. Your family has poor communication skills? Looks like you inherited it too. You're the jerk. You're the jerk. What is it with all these men who think the world revolves around them? Your wife has issues with your sorry excuse of a family, and you're too much of a wimp to even hear it. Something more positive? Hate to break it to you, but life isn't all sunshine and rainbows. Real life sucks, and you can't hide from it. You sound like my ex. He used to say the same stuff, that I was too negative. Gee, maybe because I have nothing to be happy about. Ever thought of that, genius? I knew it was over for good when he started meditating and doing positive affirmations in the morning. I just laughed at him because I know none of that crap actually works. I told him how dumb he was for believing it, and he even asked me to attend some stupid TED Talks thing with him. Not the jerk. I will get downvoted for this like I always do, but this is why so many men from America are finding women to marry in countries like mine, where we are still kind, loving, and agreeable. If my husband were to ask me to discuss something more positive, then I would happily do so because I love him and care about him. The wife in this story just has no respect for her husband, and this seems to be an ongoing issue in countries like the US. Then you act surprised when men move abroad and start families with women like me. You say it's because they aren't strong enough for a woman like you. No, they are definitely strong. They just don't want to be married to someone who takes away from their quality of life instead of adding to it. Edit. Oh, really? I only married my husband for his money? That's funny considering he is a disabled vet who lives off his pension. He is not exactly what most of you consider rich, but I don't care how much money he makes. I care that he wants the same thing as I do, to have our family and live happily together. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
If Reddit boy asked me to discuss something more positive, he'd need a new head.
Am I the jerk for rescinding letting my friend live at our house? My husband, who's 40, and I, 38, spend our winters down south with my family, leaving our large home up north vacant for months at a time. starting after Thanksgiving. We like to offer the house for free to people we know while we're gone, since otherwise it just sits vacant. We prefer knowing someone is here if something goes wrong, while our friends get a vacation. And unlike an Airbnb, professional cleaners come in every other week, so there's no maintenance. We offered the house to my friend Jill, who's 39, and her fiancé, Jack, 41. Jill already has a condo, but Jack's kids don't have a place to stay there, so we hoped they would want the larger space so the kids could visit more. Jack jumped on it, with Jill saying she would stay on weekends. A couple of weeks later, Jill told me she and Jack had broken up. Jack was going to stay with Jill for 1.5 months, then move into our house. We were okay with that. At that point, it seemed like all 4 of us would still remain friendly and maybe even continue our weekly game nights. A week after that, Jill told me that Jack was already dating around while living at her place. He would get on dating sites next to her on the couch and was texting constantly and going out at night. She said it was hard to see him dating just a couple weeks after their breakup, but that she understood this was how he was handling things. A couple of weeks after that, Jill told me she no longer wanted to be included on group chats with Jack. Jack had started a relationship with another woman, and things had gotten ugly enough, Jill asked him to move out. He was living on a friend's couch and was posting pictures of this new woman on Facebook. My husband and I started to feel uncomfortable with Jack staying here. It was one thing when it was Jack, Jill, and the kids. It's another with Jack and a bunch of dates, or Jack and a new lady I've never even met. We didn't hear from Jack during this time, so everything was coming from Jill or Facebook. But Jack just didn't seem to be in the same headspace as when we spent time with him. I had concerns that he couldn't keep it together for 1.5 months to move into our place. I don't want to be judgmental of Jack's life or coping methods, but I don't feel like he's treating my friend well. We started reaching out to other people for staying at the house. Jack finally contacted us today and asked when we would give him the grand tour. I realize now that Jack could really use the place to stay more than anyone we know, and we did tell him that he could stay. But I just feel uncomfortable letting him stay here, and I feel like a bad friend to Jill, who has encouraged us not to let this interfere with our friendship with Jack, and who has said that she thinks Jack is a good guy, but immature and spiteful. Would I be the jerk telling Jack we are rescinding our offer to let him stay 3 weeks before he's supposed to? Am I wrong in assuming this would absolutely destroy any chance of friendship if or when Jack stops what seems like a middle crisis? Not the jerk. Your friendship was based mainly with Jill, and Jack received the invitation to stay incidentally because he and Jill were a unit. I completely understand your distaste for and hesitation about him now. The main reason to uninvite Jack is what the previous person stated. He's currently couch surfing, and if he's able to have stable housing at your place, he's not going to want to give it up, especially since he has kids. The length of time he stays could grant him residency, and then you'll have to go through a formal eviction process. It can open a huge can of worms for you, so you should err on the side of caution and rescind the offer to Jack. It will spare everyone what could easily turn into a nightmare. OP. Oh geez, I hadn't even considered the squatting issue. We've been doing this for years, but with closely trusted friends, like Jill level, that I'd not even considered someone taking advantage of it. Regardless of what we do, I think we need to come up with a contract. No jerks here, whatever you decide. I know it's not necessarily what the post is about, but it doesn't seem like Jack is doing anything wrong from what you've told us. Jill even said it's okay for you to remain friends with him. You shouldn't feel like you have to refuse him for Jill's sake. It seems like she's just salty that he has moved on so quickly. OP. I don't have an issue with Jack moving on at whatever speed he wishes. Jill doesn't either. She said it was painful to see him move on, but that she understands that that's how he deals with heartache, and so this was expected. When I got divorced over 10 years ago, I was very conscious of judgment that comes with moving too fast, and I still got judged. The answer is that people who still supported your ex will think any amount of time is too fast, so I try not to put that on others. The issue comes in that Jill not only offered to let him stay after their breakup long enough to get a new place, but helped to facilitate him getting 4 months of a place to live for free, vouching that he would be fine there on his own without her. And his response has been to very openly start dating other people, to the point of showing pictures of the women to Jill and telling her how old they are. I understand they're sharing a space, but if married spouses can manage to have affairs, then surely Jack can discreetly date while still living with Jill. This is a purposeful action on Jack's part, and even then, Jill continued to express disappointment with his choices but gave him a place to stay. It wasn't until Jack started to post pictures of his new girlfriend publicly that Jill asked him to leave, and even then gave him a week to find temporary housing. I wouldn't want to live with a man who is dating another woman either. And Jill has still said things to the effect that she doesn't want to make her friends choose, but that she doesn't see a friendship continuing with Jack. I'm not sure what part of that makes Jill sound salty to you. She's one of the most grounded people I know and is taking the high road at every possible opportunity. Update. First, I called Jill to have a talk with her. I told her I respected her taking the high road, but if she needed my support, we were in her corner. She updated me that Jack says he met this new woman 2 days after they've split up. I'm not sure I believe that. He started taking her out several times a week, then describing the dates to Jill. He would show Jill pictures of her, telling Jill that he was impressed he got a woman under 30. He told her that he didn't mean for it to happen so quickly, but that he's madly in love with her and that she is the one. That was the point Jill told him to move out. She said she didn't think Jack would respect a no strangers rule if we had him stay in our house, but that she wouldn't see us having him house sit us as taking sides. It was a good talk. Next, I had a long, thorough talk with my husband about both our future relationship with Jack and our needs in a house sitter. He said that Jack reminded him of my husband when he was in his 20s and that he would never let a 20-year-old me live at my house. He said he felt more comfortable just setting up Blink cameras, which was the opposite goal of having a house sitter. So my husband wrote a long, polite text to Jack saying he wished Jack and his new relationship the best, but we don't feel comfortable with a stranger at our house, and that we felt like stepping back was the best idea during this breakup. Jack responded, "I understand. Thanks for the heads up." So in the end, a lot of time and energy put into a tough decision with the most blasé response ever, which is probably the best result possible. Thanks for all the advice. Am I the jerk because I let others eat my food, which contains unrefrigerated eggs? So this is extremely ridiculous, but 2 people told me I was wrong, so I'm asking here. I don't want to make this overly complicated, so I'll summarize. A person from work, Jessica, visited me at home and sat in my kitchen for some reason. Due to her observation and our conversation, she came to know that I store my eggs, like most people I know, on the shelf or the counter and not in the fridge. For some reason, she went nuts about this completely normal thing, told me I should not eat uncooled eggs ever. I told her it was fine several times, but she was really agitated about it, and it was weird. At work, we often bring in food to share, mostly cake and baked goods or salads. I brought in a potato and egg salad and put it in the kitchen for everyone. At some point, a work friend quietly told me that Jessica would tell people in the kitchen to not eat my food since she was in my house recently and saw that I do not care about food safety. Apparently, she did not explain in detail that it was about the eggs, but just about food safety in general. I explained loudly in front of everyone that the issue was that I do not put my eggs in the fridge. Colleagues laughed a little about it since that's how most people do it and continued to eat my salad. However, another person from work, Nicole, came up to me later and told me I should not feed others risky food without informing them, and if I wanted to take the risk of eating those eggs, it was my decision, but to not make that decision for others. I was absolutely confused. It's the first time I've heard about people freaking out about storing eggs. So, am I the jerk for using unrefrigerated eggs in other people's food? Edit. I'm from a country in Central Europe, and those eggs were from the supermarket, where they also don't put them in the fridge. My coworker is from here as well, as far as I know. She moved here from our capital city, where it's pretty international, so it's possible that A, her parents are from the States, or B, she got this idea from her international friends, but apart from this, no idea. She is no expat from North America though. Generally speaking, it's like this. Many countries inoculate chickens against salmonella, and the eggs aren't washed. The US does not inoculate and also washes the eggs. Nations that inoculate for salmonella and don't wash eggs don't require refrigeration of eggs either at the store or at home. The US requires refrigeration as a mitigation against salmonella. Anyone, please enlighten me if my understanding is wrong. I'm happy to be corrected. OP, you're not the jerk for storing and using your eggs in accordance with local health and food safety norms. We also require refrigeration because the natural protective plume has been washed off the egg, making it more porous, and it goes bad faster. I stayed at my long-distance boyfriend's house and was disgusted, not sure what to do. I, 26 female, have been seeing and dating this guy who's 26 since July, and things have been going really good. It's a long-distance situation, but we've managed to see each other at least once a month. So far, he's been kind, thoughtful, and no major red flags were detected on my end. Until The first time I flew out to visit him, I decided to stay at an Airbnb since we were still getting to know each other and I wanted my own space. The trip went super well and I had an amazing time. Last week I went back and he invited me to stay with him this time. He lives with his brother and dad, but his dad was away, so it made sense and I agreed. When I got to his house, it was late and dark, so I didn't notice much other than a weird smell. They have 3 dogs and live on an island, so I figured that had something to do with it. When I woke up, I started to notice that the house was pretty dirty, things scattered everywhere. Not hoarding bad, but pretty bad. The bathroom had dog hair, dirt, and overall looked like it hadn't been kept up with in a while. I tried to look past it since there are 2 guys living there and kept a positive attitude. Nobody gave me any rundown about the situation or apologized for the mess, but I figured his dad might have a small hoarding problem of some sort. On the second day, I started to notice even more things. The dogs don't get walked, so they go to the bathroom and throw up in the house and in the laundry area that's right behind the kitchen. They only get let out to the side yard from time to time. The dogs have to pass by the bathroom to get to it, which explains why there's so much hair and paw prints and dirt in there. I started to feel uncomfortable showering there because I didn't feel like I was in a clean environment, and I feel terrible for the animals. Then a really awful smell, like throw up, appeared from the laundry area. He mentioned it, and I asked him what he thought it was. He said throw up from the dogs, but he couldn't see where it was coming from. The day after, he wanted to invite his friends over to hang out, so I told him he'd have to clean up that smell at the very least before they arrived. He told me that he would if he had time, and I started feeling even more disgusted than before. He didn't have enough time the next day, and his brother and him figured out it was a great idea to burn a cantaloupe incense right before their friends came to mask and hide the smell. They were hanging out on the table right by the smell the entire time they were there. At this point, I was beyond grossed out. I spoke to him about it, the mess, and the lack of urgency to clean up the smell, and he said that staying on top of cleaning with the dogs was an uphill battle, and he had to some degree given up on it. He also told me that he doesn't plan on living like that once he lives on his own and will not be getting any pets. As for the smell, he told me he didn't think it was just throw up and thought it might be some sort of animal or rodent and didn't want to clean it up and find something in front of me, so he brushed it off as much as he could so he could get to it after I left. I told him I would rather seen whatever it was and saw that there was at least some initiative on his part than to just let me think that it's not a priority to live in a clean place. I feel weird because cleanliness is really important to me and I just can't believe what I experienced. I do not want, nor could I live like that in the future, and I kind of want to end it, but he's a great guy in all other aspects. From what I know, since I've now been totally surprised. How would you handle this situation? To not even lift a finger for guests? Girl, he won't change. I was going to ask if he's the only man in town, but he isn't even in your town. Are there literally no other men within a day's drive of you? I would 100% break up. He lives in filth, and he doesn't have much of a problem with it. He is a negligent pet owner. If you live with him, you will be doing all of the cleaning. If you have kids with him, you will be doing all of the childcare. He can't be bothered to do basic tasks. This is who he is. Don't bother trying to change him. It's not your job to fix him.
Imagine you're filming your son's birthday party. Everyone's having a great time, and then a wild Karen runs up to you and tells you to stop recording her. That's exactly what happens in our next story. It just popped up on your screen. Give it a tap, come have a listen. Karen and I are already waiting for you.